Chapter 24:59. The youngster got up and was about to walk towards the crowd. "Young Master Mo," a cold voice sounded. The man in black who was sitting beside the youngster looked at the youngster and said, "Don't cause trouble." "Ah Wu, I am such a gentle and elegant young master. Do I look like someone who will cause trouble?" The youngster in white raised his eyebrows and the smile on his lips became more and more demonic. The few people rolled their eyes at him. They tacitly looked away and ignored him. These 5 people, weren't they, Zhou Mo, Gue Wu, Xiao Jin, Yan Xiao Yi and Mo Yuing had come all the way from the West Continent. Zhou Mo thought that there must be something wrong with these people's eyes. They couldn't see his gentleness and elegance. He patted his sleeves and walked over. The table next to him was obviously crowded. But for some reason, when Zhou Mo walked over, the crowded customers automatically made way for him. It was as if they were moved away by an invisible force. At that moment, the restaurant fell into silence. Everyone's eyes were focused on Zhou Mo. In their eyes flashed a trace of amazement and astonishment. Zhou Mo walked directly to the storyteller, raised his hand and gently knocked on the table. "Can you tell me the details of the Miss Yi you mentioned just now?" That person was frightened by Zhou Mo. His face turned pale and he stared at Zhou Mo in astonishment. Zhou Mo's smile became more gentle and modest. "Don't misunderstand. That Miss Yi is very likely to be our friend." That person moved his lips in fear. The youngster in front of him, who was as demonic as a fox, indeed looked like the same kind of person as Miss Yi. Then he looked at the table of the youngster. Although they all smiled very gently, however, he could still feel the powerful aura that these people exuded. That person was still hesitating whether he should tell them about Miss Yi or not. Zhou Mo had already taken out a bag of silver coins. "We just want to know about the specific things about Miss Yi." The bag of silver coins rattled. From the sound of it, there were at least a few hundred silver coins. That person's eyes lit up slightly. As the saying goes, money makes the world go round. Very quickly, the man recounted everything that had happened to Miss Yi recently. After receiving the silver pouch, he took out a silver coin and bit into it. The expression on that person's face became excited. "Oh yes, Miss Yi is quite familiar with the boss of this restaurant. Just now I saw the boss and Miss Yi's 2 companions rushing out. I vaguely heard them saying that they were going to the Miao tribe to save Miss Yi." "The Miao tribe?" Zhou Mo narrowed his eyes. "Save Miss Yi? I don't know what exactly happened, but if it's Miss Yi, even if it's the Miao, they can definitely escape unscathed." Before the man could finish speaking, he saw Zhou Mo turn around and return to his 4 companions. The few of them heard the Miao people and the word "save." He didn't look tired at all. Yan Xiao Yi threw a bag of money into the waiter's hand. "Help us look after this table of good dishes, we'll continue when we come back." With that, the 5 of them rushed out of the restaurant. They had just arrived at the entrance of the restaurant. Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind. "I know where the Miao Stockade village is." Chapter 24:60. Miao Stockade Village. Yiqing Luo's figure swiftly traversed the roofs which were filled with exotic styles. Her sharp eyes scanned through everything below. The people in the Miao Stockade village mainly used Miao Miao's venomous spells and weren't too concerned about the cultivation of profound energy. Because of this, no one detected Yiqing Luo's presence. But even so, Yiqing Luo was still extremely cautious and didn't dare to be careless. Old Man Tsang told her in her mind, "There are various kinds of venomous worms around the Miao Stockade village. If you accidentally disturb those venomous worms, the venomous worms will give off an alarm and by then, all the people in the Miao Stockade village will be alarmed." Yiqing Luo released her perception. Sensing the Miao Stockade village, that place with people was the noisiest. The surroundings were filled with venomous worms. She wondered if Elder T and Grandma Bu had disturbed the surrounding venomous worms when they came to the Miao Stockade village, and if they were hurt by them. Ordinary people like the two Boo elders. It was highly possible that they would be discovered by the guards the minute they got close to the Miao Stockade village. If that was the case, at least it could ensure that the two Boo elders would not be hurt by the venomous worms. The Miao people would not kill them before they figured out the reason why the two Boo elders ran over to the Miao Stockade village. She only hoped that she could make it in time. Third elder, what do you mean? Those two intruders are from the Boo family village. Why can't we kill them? Suddenly, an enraged voice sounded in his ears. Yi Qing Luo was stunned when she heard the address, Third Elder. Her figure swiftly moved towards the direction of the voice. Nearing one of the stockade village, she saw two figures standing at the open door. One of them was the Third Elder Miao whom she had met at the Boo family village. Opposite him was another middle-aged man, wearing the same patterned robe as Third Elder Miao. Apparently, he was one of the Miao elders. Third Elder Miao's face sunk. Fifth Elder, if we kill those two Boo family members, will the traitor we are looking for appear? Since the traitor disappeared in the Boo family village, then the village is definitely related to the traitor. Rather than killing those two old fellows, why not keep them alive to lure the traitor out? Fifth Elder Miao didn't believe it at all. Ever since you came back from the Boo family village, you have been behaving strangely. Did the Boo family village give you some benefits? They're just a bunch of old and weak trash. What benefits can they give me? Third Elder Miao spat. I'm thinking of a way to retrieve the Miao tribe's ancient goo worm. What is it? Fifth Elder Miao furrowed his brows. I went to the Boo family village, killed them, and robbed their things, but the people of the Boo family village refused to let go. That traitor also refused to appear. If the hard way didn't work, then I would use the soft way. Aren't those old fellows kind-hearted? I treat them so well and let them treat me as a hero who saves the world. If I want to know something, why won't they obediently tell me? Third Elder Miao glanced at Fifth Elder Miao disdainfully. Why don't you think of a better way? Fifth Elder Miao's mouth was wide open, and he immediately shut it. All the words were stuck in his throat. You spared the lives of the villagers, is it really, just because of this? Fifth Elder Miao looked at him suspiciously. Third Elder Miao said frankly, what else do you think? Without waiting for Fifth Elder Miao to reply, he impatiently continued, all right, I'll leave the Boo family village's matters to you in the future. I don't care about anything else. Chapter 2461. Don't. Third Elder Miao. Fifth Elder Miao panicked. He immediately caught up with Third Elder Miao and pulled him back. I'm overthinking. Just follow your plan to find the traitor. I won't ask any more questions. Third Elder Miao snorted and shook off his hand. Although he still looked angry, but at least he had no intention of leaving. Fifth Elder Miao heaved a sigh of relief. Going to the Boo family village to find the traitor. Whoever accepted it would be unlucky. Who knew where the traitor had gone? Every time the patriarch asked about this matter, he realized that there was no progress in the matter. Third Elder Miao would always be the one to suffer. He must have been kicked in the head by a donkey to be in charge of the Boo family village. Seeing that Third Elder Miao had no intention of letting go of the matter, Fifth Elder Miao was worried that Third Elder Miao would take the opportunity to push the blame onto him. He hurriedly left the village. Third Elder Miao stood where he was and remained silent for a long time. Until Fifth Elder Miao's aura completely disappeared. Third Elder Miao placed his hand on his chest and gasped for breath. His feigned seriousness and earnestness collapsed in an instant. He took a deep breath and walked into the village. If this happens a few more times, I won't be able to hold it in. Third Elder Miao closed the door of the village and turned around. When his gaze landed on the red-robed figure that had appeared behind him at some point in time, he was completely stupefied. The girl's face was beautiful, and the corners of her mouth were curled up in an extremely faint smile. Her long and narrow eyes were slightly raised, as if they were embellished with luminous pearls. They were extremely bright. It was a beautiful picture that could make people sink into it. However, this caused an expression of fear to appear on Third Elder Miao's face. He staggered back a few steps. His body hit the door that had just been closed, making a loud sound. This sound brought Third Elder Miao back to his senses. His hands immediately trembled as he quickly fiddled with the door lock, trying to escape. Behind him, the girl smiled faintly. She had no intention of stopping him. Well, go out and call all the people of the Miao tribe here. I will personally tell everyone that you, Third Elder Miao, are now my people. You. Third Elder Miao's hand paused. He quickly turned around and pressed his back against the door. You're talking nonsense. This elder. How could this elder possibly be one of your people? If you protect the Bu family village for me, doesn't that mean you're one of my people? Yiqing Luo's body slumped against the back of the chair as she squinted her eyes lazily. Earlier, wasn't Third Elder Miao painstakingly fabricating a story to protect old T and Grandma Bu's lives? Third Elder Miao's face turned pale, and he clenched his fists. You forced me to. He used the most insidious method of the Miao tribe to swear a poisonous oath. If he didn't protect the people of the Bu family village, he would die a more painful and unsightly death than the people of the Bu family. All of this was because of that bitch. The minute Third Elder Miao recalled that he was duped by Yiqing Luo, agreeing to her various unreasonable requests, his heart surged with endless anger. Cheap hussy. That day, you actually dared to play tricks on this elder. How dare you appear in front of this elder? This elder is going to kill you. Yiqing Luo was still smiling as she remained unmoved. Where are old T and Grandma Bu locked up? Bring me there. Chapter 2462. The smile in Yiqing Luo's eyes gradually turned cold. I said, bring me over. Her pink lips moved slightly. Word by word, he spat out each and every word extremely clearly. Third Elder Miao's fury was extinguished by Yiqing Luo's cold qi. A chill ran down his spine, and his body trembled uncontrollably. You, Third Elder Miao spoke. Even his voice was trembling. His calves were shaking. In Third Elder Miao's heart, the fear and intense uneasiness towards Yiqing Luo became more and more obvious. He really could not understand. How could this girl have such a powerful aura? Perhaps it was the patriarch who was standing here. They all had to lower their heads before this young lady's powerful aura. Yi Luo, haven't you had enough of toying with me? Third Elder Miao clutched his head as he was on the verge of breaking down. I've already told you everything I know, and I've done everything you asked of me. Now that we've arrived at the Miao Stockade village, are you still unwilling to let me go? At this moment, Third Elder Miao looked like he had aged more than 10 years. Yiqing Luo looked at Third Elder Miao, who was playing the pitiful card, as she expressed that her heart wasn't affected at all, who said, I'm playing with you? Are you not playing with me? I almost collapsed in the toilet that day. Third Elder Miao said while gnashing his teeth. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her gaze swept across him. You'll believe whatever I say? What do you mean? Third Elder Miao's face paled. These few days, have you been having trouble sleeping at night, sweating profusely, especially at night, sometimes cold, sometimes hot? Yiqing Luo asked with a smile. Third Elder Miao's face turned even paler. You. What do you mean? What I mean is. Yiqing Luo stood up slowly, her actions were elegant and dignified. I am not playing with you. Third Elder Miao was so shocked that he sat on the ground. The chill on his back had already been covered by cold sweat. His whole body was trembling. The muscles on his face kept twitching. His mouth twitched so much that he couldn't even speak clearly. You. Not fooling around with him? In other words, that day, she had indeed poisoned him. The so-called diarrhea was just to make him lower his guard, F***ck. He might as well be toying with him. Third Elder Miao's heart was in a mess because of Yi Qing Luo, and he really didn't know if he should believe Yi Qing Luo this time round. However, he cherished his life. Even if he knew that there was a possibility that this was Yi Qing Luo purposely making use of the poisoning incident that day, to tease him again. However, it could also be true, he was not willing to bet his life on this possibility. Now, will Third Elder Miao bring me over to Elder T? Yi Qing Luo saw Third Elder Miao's expression, hence she asked him smilingly. Third Elder Miao's face twitched. He gritted his teeth and said, yes. Yi Qing Luo nodded in satisfaction. Good boy, after I bring Elder T and Grandma Bu out safely, I will give you the antidote. A cold glint flashed across Third Elder Miao's eyes. You won't lie to me? Then do you believe it? Yi Qing Luo asked with a smile. Third Elder Miao clenched his fists tightly. Now, he had no choice but to believe it. He could only choose to believe. Change into the Miao female attendant's attire, I will bring you over. Third Elder Miao said as he tensed his body and walked towards the inner hall of the village. Very quickly, he took out a set of clean female attendant attire, new. In order to move more conveniently, Yi Qing Luo didn't put on airs. Chapter 2463. Yi Qing Luo disguised herself as a maid and followed behind Third Elder Miao towards their destination. The Miao village's terrain was extremely complicated. And near each of the more important villages, there would be traps set up. What's more, the surroundings of each place was a nest of goo worms. Yi Qing Luo indicated that she was considered lucky that she didn't get infected after wandering around the Miao village for so long. Turning left and right, as Yi Qing Luo walked, she overlapped the surrounding terrain with the map provided by Peach in her mind. After a while, Third Elder Miao stopped in front of an extremely solemn and strange huge village. That huge village was about the size of a courtyard. It was filled with a foreign style. There were 2 strong guards standing at the entrance. Third Elder Miao. Did they confess? Third Elder Miao's voice was calm as he asked coldly. No. The guard replied, the patriarch came but left very quickly. He asked me to pass a message to Third Elder Miao to investigate the matter of the traitor. It's the last 3 days, if we are unable to get the whereabouts of the traitor from the 2 Bu villagers, we will slaughter you and the entire Bu village. The guard's voice was very flat, without any extra emotions. Third Elder Miao's expression stiffened as his brows furrowed into a ball. The patriarch personally gave the order? The guard looked straight forward. Yes. I understand. Third Elder Miao snorted coldly as he threw the pendant on his waist fiercely and strode into the village. Yi Qing Luo immediately followed. She was dressed in a maid's attire and the guard thought she was Third Elder Miao's maid, so he didn't stop her. The 2 of them stepped into the village. The village was extremely quiet. There was a thick atmosphere of terror. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she lifted her eyes and looked around. The surrounding environment. The village was huge and spacious. But there were only a few luminous pearls which illuminated a few corners. No matter how bright the luminous pearls were, it couldn't overcome the spaciousness of the village. Because of that, the village was very dark. Yi Qing Luo could vaguely see the strange and terrifying totem on the 2 sides of the wall. The reason why it was too dark. Yi Qing Luo couldn't see it clearly. She could vaguely see a pair of green, bell-like eyes glaring at her fiercely. Her heart trembled. The profound jade heart in his chest inexplicably surged with a feeling of being burned by raging flames. What was going on, ever since he carried the heart-calming bead with him? Her profound jade heart had never experienced this sort of abnormal activity before. Yi Qing Luo wanted to suppress this feeling. However, that scorching heat burned even more fiercely. As though it wanted to burn Yi Qing Luo entirely into ashes. Oh, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but let out a muffled groan. Third Elder Miao, who was in front, sensed something amiss with Yi Qing Luo and immediately turned his head back. He saw Yi Qing Luo holding on to her chest, her face pale and on the verge of collapsing. You. Third Elder Miao's expression froze. Hey, are you alright? This was the Hmong stockade village. The Patriarch's spiritual energy is connected to this place. Don't cause trouble. Yi Qing Luo shook her head as her breathing quickened. The fire was still burning in his heart. Third Elder Miao sensed that something wasn't right with Yi Qing Luo and walked over in an attempt to support her. When his palm touched Yi Qing Luo's shoulder, a scorching pain assaulted the center of his palm. Third Elder Miao was so shocked that he immediately loosened his hand. Raising his hand, his palm was flushed red, as though he had been scalded. Chapter 2464. The scorching heat was still persisting. As though there was magma in her heart, crashing against it non-stop. Her eyes started to blur. Her petite body swayed slightly. Relying on her willpower, she tried her best to raise her eyes. The wall. The totem on the wall, what is it? When she lifted her eyes, Yi Qing Luo's eyes were completely fixed on that wall. She could see it clearly. That pair of jade-green eyes on the wall sparkled with a treacherous glint. She could even see clearly that pair of jade-green eyes winking at her. Following that, she saw the surrounding scene became clearer and clearer. A big bloody mouth, as though it was sticking out a scarlet tongue, as though it was roaring. Yi Qing Luo even seemed to hear that, the roar of a wild beast. That was. What kind of wild beast's roar? Why did it sound extremely familiar? But she couldn't figure out what kind of wild beast's roar was it. Yi Qing Luo's mind was in a mess. That scorching feeling in her chest slowly surged up to her eyes. The totem on the wall became clearer and clearer. Yi Luo. Suddenly, she heard Third Elder Miao's terrified roar. His hand, once again, tugged on her wrist. Even though he was being scorched, he still didn't let go. Even though Yi Qing Luo's mind was no longer clear. But she could still feel it clearly. Third Elder Miao's fear and anxiety. He pulled her, speedily sprinting towards a direction. The speed was so fast, as though there was some dreadful beast chasing behind. At the instant when she was pulled by Third Elder Miao, that scene in front of Yi Qing Luo instantly dissipated. Her body staggered. Perhaps it was because of the scorching heat from the profound jade heart, which made Yi Qing Luo's physical strength unable to take it. She was easily pulled by Third Elder Miao to an even darker corner. At the instant when Yi Qing Luo was forcefully pulled away, her peripheral vision once again shot towards that wall. Whatever bloody mouth, whatever wild beast's roar, it seemed as though it had never happened. Only those two. His eyes, which were glowing with a faint green light, met her gaze without blinking for a moment. At the corner, Third Elder Miao stopped in his tracks as he released Yi Qing Luo's hand and panted heavily. Yi Luo, what's the matter with you? Do you know that just now, you were almost discovered by the Patriarch? He raised his hand in pain. Are you possessed by the devil? Why is my body so hot? Even my hands are getting burnt. As he spoke, he spread out his hands. But when he looked at his wrinkled hands, there wasn't a single trace of being burned by the raging fire. Third Elder Miao widened his eyes and looked at his hands in disbelief. Just now, he clearly felt that a layer of his skin was about to be scalded off. How could nothing have happened to him? However, no matter how Third Elder Miao rubbed his palms, that burning sensation made him feel like he was dreaming. Both of his hands were intact, without any scars. Yi Qing Luo leaned against the wall, feeling weak all over. She stared fixedly at Third Elder Miao, who was rubbing his palms continuously. Her breathing was slightly ragged. It wasn't just Third Elder Miao's hand that was fine. Her profound jade heart also seemed to have returned to normal. The feeling of being burned by raging flames. As though it had been extinguished in an instant. What on earth was going on? Chapter 2465. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened. Just now, did you talk to me? It should be the totem on the wall that caused your profound heart jade to react. Old man Tsang guessed. Soon after, he said thoughtfully, looks like, the Miao Stockade village, is still hiding many secrets. Yiqing Luo recalled the scene on the wall earlier. The eyes of the beast. The cry of the beast. Inexplicably, he felt a sense of familiarity. Why did I have such a huge reaction, so much so that even your consciousness had no way to connect to mine? Yiqing Luo thought about it and felt that the totem was too strange. Her connection with old man Tsang. It depended on the spiritual energy and consciousness of both parties. Old man Tsang mused for a moment and shook his head with some uncertainty. This old man is also not too sure. You only saw that pair of eyes, and this old man also only saw that pair of eyes. Before seeing the complete totem, this old man is also unable to determine just what exactly is the cause of your abnormality. Pausing, old man Tsang's voice deepened a bit. The only thing this old man can be certain of is that totem possesses an extremely formidable power that transcends the balance of the Nirvana realm. For you, it's still too much of a stretch. No wonder old man Tsang said that there were many secrets hidden in the Miao Stockade village. She and old man Tsang had not seen the totem completely, so no matter how much they guessed, it was useless. It would be better to directly ask Third Elder Miao, who was in the know. As she thought about this, she retracted her divine sense and looked at the person in front of her. Third Elder Miao, that totem, before he could finish. Third Elder Miao's expression suddenly changed. He speedily stretched out his hand, trying to cover Yiqing Luo's mouth. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she moved backwards to evade. Yi Luo, that is the taboo of the Miao tribe. Don't mention it again. Third Elder Miao spoke with a solemn expression. His brows were filled with anxiety and unease. Totem? Taboo? I forgot to remind you just now. Don't look around when you enter the Miao Stockade cave, especially the things on the walls. Don't look at them with your eyes, the third elder of the Miao Stockade cave continued. His voice was filled with urgency. You seem to have lost your soul and wanted to touch that wall. Once you touch that wall, the chief will immediately know that you are in the Miao Stockade village. At that time, not only will you not be able to save the two old men from the Bu family village, but you'll also have to hand yourself over here. Miao Village Cave, Yiqing Luo murmured this name, why can't I mention that picture? She had just spat out a word when she was stopped by Third Elder Miao's gaze. Third Elder Miao's face was pale. He was almost unable to catch his breath. It was obvious that he had been given quite a fright. That is our Miao tribe's taboo. Not only are you not allowed to see or touch it, you can't even mention it. Third Elder Miao's solemn look made Yiqing Luo unable to continue asking. The taboo of the Miao tribe. It was a taboo that Third Elder Miao was so afraid of. Even if she forced Third Elder Miao to answer. He was afraid that Third Elder Miao would not reveal anything. Do you still want to save the two old guys in the Bu family village? Third Elder Miao saw Yiqing Luo not replying and his face revealed an impatient expression. The longer we drag, the easier it is for the chief to find out. I don't want to be treated as the Miao tribe's traitor. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and kept the thoughts in her mind as she nodded, let's go. Chapter 2466. This time, Yiqing Luo didn't attempt to use her mental power to explore the totem on the wall. That pair of jade-green eyes. Now that she recalled it, she felt a chill running down her spine. After walking for about a cup of tea's time. In the quiet village, a calm and indifferent voice was heard, who are you? Third Elder. Third Elder Miao replied. A ray of light struck, instantly lighting up the pitch-black surroundings. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she looked over. She saw a door in front of her opened. There were 2 guards standing at the door. As compared to the guards she saw outside the Miao village, their abilities were obviously stronger. Third Elder Miao took a step forward. Yiqing Luo immediately followed. The 2 of them, one in front and one behind, stepped into that door. With a bam, the door was shut. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened slightly as she glanced at Third Elder Miao's back view with an inexplicable ominous premonition. But at the next moment, she heard Third Elder Miao's impatient voice, "The 2 old fellows from the Boo village are there." Yiqing Luo's thoughts were interrupted. She looked towards the direction which Third Elder Miao was pointing at. Here, it was a place similar to a prison cell. There were prison cells all around. Each prison cell was separated by iron bars. And at the end of the prison cell, on 2 wooden stakes, hung Elder T and Grandma Boo. They were covered in blood as they hung on the wooden stakes, as though they had fainted. Yiqing Luo's brows creased. She didn't lose her rationality and disregard everything. Instead, she first released her perception to ascertain that there was no one else's presence in this underground prison. Then she quickly walked past Third Elder Miao and dashed towards Elder T and Grandma Boo. The 4 limbs of the Boo family's 2 elders were tied with iron chains. Their faces were devoid of any color. Their hair was messy and they looked extremely disheveled. Seeing Elder T in front of her, Yiqing Luo recalled a few days ago, when they were in the Boo village, Elder T was still so gentle, smiling at her benevolently. But now, it had become like this. She clenched her fists and quickly took out 2 healing and replenishing elixirs from the profound phoenix ring. She approached the wooden stake and carefully fed it to the 2 elders. The medicinal pills which Yiqing Luo refined naturally had an extremely fast effect. After a while, the 2 Boo family elders gradually woke up and opened their eyes. Elder T was still in a trance. It took him a while to see the person in front of him clearly. His eyes widened in astonishment, and his voice was hoarse and harsh. "You. How could you, young lady?" Granny Boo had already woken up by now, and when she saw Yiqing Luo's face, she went into a blank. As soon as they moved, the chains on his body made a clanking sound. They then remembered that they were tied up in the dungeon by the Miao people. "Little girl, what are you doing here?" Elder T's face turned pale. "This is the Miao tribe, little girl. I'll get you out of here." Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and her fingertips knocked on the metal chains. "Where else are you injured? Can you still walk? Little girl, do you know what you are doing? This is the Miao tribe. How could you come here? The Miao tribe will not let you off." When Elder T heard that, his eyes turned red as he choked with sobs. "What ability do I have, to trouble little girl to save me time and time again? Quickly leave, before the Miao tribe people discover you. Quickly leave this place." Chapter 2467. Elder T's tears streamed down his face. Grandma Boo also cried out, "Young lady, hurry and leave. This is our own choice, we were too rash, we can't harm you." As she spoke, she choked with sobs. Her body was weak due to the torture she had suffered earlier. That iron chain was hanging Grandma Boo's hands tightly. She was in so much pain that her entire face was wrinkled, but she was afraid that Yiqing Luo would be worried, so she didn't make a sound. "Young lady, you are still young, don't bury your future here. Don't lose your life because of us 2 old fellows. Is a good lady. She won't blame you. Grandma Boo, don't talk anymore, conserve your energy." Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly, comforting her. She walked to Grandma Boo's side and used one hand to support her, lending strength to Grandma Boo to ease the pain from the iron chain. "Young lady." Elder T choked with sobs as he tried to persuade. Let me untie the iron chain for you first. Yi Qing Luo interrupted Elder T's voice. She had just tested the hardness of the iron chain. It was just an ordinary iron chain. It was rather easy to break these iron chains. Close your eyes, don't be afraid. Yi Qing Luo smiled gently. Her voice exuded a reassuring and convincing power. The two Bu elders wanted to say something. But after meeting Yi Qing Luo's resolute gaze, they still chose to close their eyes. Back in the Bu family village, Elder T knew that once this young lady decided on something, no one could change her mind. If they didn't want to be a burden to her, then they could only try their best to cooperate with her, and try their best not to be a burden to her. Yi Qing Luo took a few steps back. Her eyes gradually turned sharp. Her fingers moved. A fiery red feather fan appeared in her palm. Profound energy was injected into the fan, and at this moment, a bewitching red glow appeared, burning brightly. Kacha! A few crisp sounds were heard as the iron chains were cut off and fell onto the ground. The two Bu elders' bodies immediately sank. Yi Qing Luo supported them with each hand, letting them lean against the wooden pillar, sitting down to rest. After rescuing the two Bu elders from the iron chain, Yi Qing Luo's gaze turned towards the surroundings, surveying the surroundings. I'll bring you out of the Miao tribe first, we'll talk about the rest after we get out. As soon as she finished speaking, his gaze was fixed on a certain spot. His expression changed drastically. Third Elder Miao, how dare you scheme against me? Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed as a pair of sharp charming eyes, like a sharp icicle, pierced directly towards Third Elder Miao, as she spat out a sentence while clenching her teeth. Her reaction could be considered very fast. The moment he sensed that something was wrong, he immediately bent down and hugged the two Bu family's elders. Then, with a single step, he flew towards Third Elder Miao. However, just at the moment when Yi Qing Luo leapt up, a loud bang shook the entire Hmong stockade village 3 times. Dong, then, a huge iron cage came crashing down. If Yi Qing Luo was alone, escaping from this iron cage was definitely not a problem. But, in Yi Qing Luo's hands, there were 2 old men who were obviously exhausted. The moment the iron cage came crashing down, Yi Qing Luo knew that her discovery was too late. She decisively gave up on the idea of escaping with the Bu family's 2 elders. Just at the moment when the iron cage came crashing down on their heads, she had already brought the 2 Bu elders back to the side of the wooden pillar. Chapter 2468. The iron cage that flickered with a cold light trapped the 3 of them inside. Young lady. The two Bu family elders were so shocked by the sudden turn of events that they couldn't recover from their shock. They stared blankly at the iron cage and stammered, "This. What is going on? Why is there an iron cage?" Grandma Bu's eyes widened in astonishment. She looked at the iron cage. Then she looked at Yi Qing Luo's gloomy expression. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Young lady. We've let you down. We've caused you to be trapped in the Miao tribe. It's all right." Yi Qing Luo turned back to look at the 2 Bu elders and the expression on her face became gentler. "Just treat it as me asking you to rest more. After you've rested enough and recovered your energy, we'll leave." Ha ha ha. A sudden ear-piercing laughter was heard from outside the iron cage. Third Elder Miao placed both his hands behind his back, totally different from the yes man in front of Yi Qing Luo earlier. "Trapped in the Miao stockade cave and you still want to leave? Ha ha ha. Seeing that you're so ignorant, this elder shall be merciful and tell you. The Miao stockade cave is not a place where you outsiders can come and go as you please." Third Elder Miao walked slowly to the iron cage with a complacent smile on his face. When the 2 Bu elders heard that, their bodies trembled violently as their faces were filled with guilt. Yi Qing Luo didn't even raise her head as she half-squatted in front of the two Bu elders and took their pulse while sneering. Third elder Miao, don't be too confident. If I want to leave, can you stop me? Third elder Miao couldn't help but burst out laughing. Why don't you leave for this elder to see? Ha ha ha. As long as I hand you over to the clan leader, this elder will definitely be able to get rid of the mess in the Bu family village and obtain a respectable status. As though he was thinking of his future. Third elder Miao's laughter became increasingly carefree and complacent. Yi Qing Luo turned a deaf ear to it. There wasn't a single trace of panic on her face. Only between his brows, there was a hint of coldness. After confirming that the two Bu elders had not suffered any serious injuries, Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief and fed both of them another elemental energy pill as she comforted them warmly. Grandpa Bu, Grandma Bu, rest here and recover your energy. In a while, I'll bring you out. Young lady. Granny Bu held Yi Qing Luo's hand tightly. Yi Qing Luo smiled sweetly, don't worry. After she finished speaking, she slowly stood up and faced third elder Miao. In that instant, the expression on her face became extremely domineering. From head to toe, he released an aura that looked down on everything. Third elder Miao's maniacal laughter was abruptly stopped by Yi Qing Luo's imposing manner. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were calm as she fixed her gaze on him. Her pink lips curled upwards as she spoke in a chilly voice. Third elder Miao's current fantasy, whether he has the life to fulfill it or not is still a question. Third elder Miao's face turned pale, but his expression quickly returned to normal. He coldly snorted in a rather pleased manner. You still want to use the matter of me being poisoned to deceive me? Do you really think this elder is a fool? Let you tease me again and again? Towards Yi Qing Luo. Third elder Miao was filled with disgust and hatred from the bottom of his heart. It was Yi Qing Luo who made him lose his face in front of his subordinates. It was Yi Qing Luo who teased him time and time again, trampling on his pride. That cheap hussy who was full of lies. He didn't believe that there was any poison in his body or such nonsense. Chapter 2469. Yi Qing Luo laughed lowly. She raised her eyes curved, narrow and charming. Whether I am deceiving you or not, you know it in your heart. Pausing for a moment, Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and pressed the glower flame fan against her pink lips as she continued, actually, from the start, I really felt that you were rather silly, but now, you're not that silly. At least, he knew how to take advantage of her confidence and scheme against her. He had been tricked. Yi Qing Luo wasn't particularly angry. She had indeed underestimated Third Elder Miao, believing that Third Elder Miao cherished his life. But he had overlooked it. The third elder of the Miao clan had been fooled by her in the Bu family village. He no longer believed her. Third elder Miao's face turned slightly pale. He clenched his fists tightly and stared sharply at the young girl in the cage who was smiling calmly. In his heart, there was a faint feeling of unease. Yi Luo was too calm. Especially when those eyes, which seemed to be able to see through the soul, looked at him with a faint smile. He felt a sharp pain in his stomach. Every night, the feeling of sweating, sometimes cold, sometimes hot, seemed to attack his heart. Yi Luo had fed him that day in the Bu family village. Was it really poison? No, impossible. The Miao tribe's doctor has already checked on me, there is no poison in my body. This elder is not poisoned. Not knowing if it was to convince himself or to convince Yi Qing Luo, Third Elder Miao practically roared out this sentence. That's right. He wasn't poisoned. Dr. Miao did not find any toxins in his body. It must be this bitch who wanted to trick him and make him fall for it. Poochie, an unsuppressible chuckle escaped from Yi Qing Luo's mouth. She smiled and said, then, did Miao Yi find any clues about the poison in Miss Miao's body? Third Elder Miao opened his eyes wide, his countenance turned pale as he staggered several steps back. Yi Qing Luo continued to smile. Then, during that crazy period of time, was there any doctor who found any clues? It seems like, even Miss Miao couldn't detect the poison in little prince's body with her goo worm. Third Elder Miao's body suddenly swayed. His legs began to wobble. His breathing also became a little hurried. He staggered backward. He muttered softly, "Impossible. Impossible. You're just scaring me. You're definitely playing with me." However, even if he brainwashed himself repeatedly, the expression on Third Elder Miao's face grew more and more frightened and panicked. "Yi Luo. Yi Luo," he suddenly cried out Yi Qing Luo's name in panic and helplessness, as his eyes stared straight at Yi Qing Luo crazily. "This elder will let you out now, you give this elder the antidote." Yi Qing Luo tilted her head as she fanned herself with a languid look. "But, I don't feel like going out now." Then, she walked over to the Bu family's 2 elders and sat down. "The environment here is not bad. I will stay here for a while." "Yi Luo." Third Elder Miao's face turned pale. He was flustered and anxious. The Miao Stockade Village's cave is the most taboo place in the Miao tribe. I'll let you out now and send you away from the Miao tribe. Give me the antidote. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh out. Third Elder Miao really cherished his life. But, did he really think that after this iron cage was put down, she could still leave easily? The Miao tribe's people were not fools. She already had no chance to leave quietly. Chapter 2470. Third Elder, I heard that you've already caught the person who trespassed into Miao tribe? A deep voice was heard coming from the entrance of the dungeon. Immediately following that, a middle-aged man walked over. That man's imposing manner was unleashed, carrying a trace of sharpness. When that man walked nearer to Third Elder Miao, Third Elder Miao's face turned as white as a piece of white paper. His entire body started to tremble violently. He plopped onto the ground as he stammered, "Patriarch, Patriarch." The person who came was the Miao tribe's patriarch, Miao Yixiong. Miao Yixiong was all smiles. Third Elder need not be so courteous. Third Elder Miao stood up apprehensively. He paid attention to Miao Yixiong's expression as he tried his best to calm his emotions. Looking at the patriarch's expression, he probably hadn't heard what he said about releasing Yi Luo. He couldn't afford to be flustered. Today, the patriarch had already seen Yi Luo locked up in the Miao tribe's dungeon. He had no other choice. No matter if he was poisoned by Yi Qing Luo, he had to stand on the Miao tribe's side. "Patriarch, this is the person who trespassed into Miao tribe, trying to save the 2 old fellows in the Bu family village." After he had made up his mind, Third Elder Miao decisively pointed at Yi Qing Luo. Miao Yixiong narrowed his eyes. He placed his hands behind his back as he walked nearer to the iron cage. When his gaze met the young lady's face, his expression suddenly congealed. "Yi Luo?" Yi Qing Luo lazily raised her eyelids as she squinted at Miao Yixiong, smiling as she spoke. "Miao tribe leader, long time no see." "Not long. Not long." These words were said with clenched teeth, as though he was suppressing his anger. Third Elder Miao saw that the atmosphere between the 2 of them was not right, and realized that there was a grudge between the patriarch and Yi Luo? And it wasn't a small grudge? Third Elder Miao stood on the patriarch's side even more firmly. "Patriarch, the last time I lost in the Bu family village, it was because she blocked and protected the village. This time, she ran over to the Miao tribe to save these 2 people. This person must have a close relationship with the Bu family village, and there's a possibility that traitor's disappearance is related to her." "No. We don't know anything about traitors. This is only the 2nd time we've met this young lady. She was just being kind. She just couldn't bear to see us 2 old people get hurt. Let her go, let her go." Granny Bu struggled to stand up. Her wrinkled face was filled with tears. I've kowtowed to you. I'll answer whatever you want to ask. Let this little girl go. Then, Granny Boo's tottering body propped itself up, wanting to kneel. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and stopped her. He won't dare to do anything to us, you stay here and rest well. Heh, Miao Yixiong sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. Young lady, you sure talk big. Of course. Yiqing Luo gently patted Grandma Boo's back, comforting her as she gave a faint smile. Your daughter's life is now in my hands. If you don't want your daughter to live on, then just go ahead and do it. Grandma Boo's expression changed. You. Miao Yixiong was so angry that his eyes were filled with rage. Yi Luo. What did you do to Rongrong? How could he not want Miao Rongrong to live? Miao Rongrong was his only hope now. She was the only candidate to be the Miao tribe's sacred maiden. But, ever since Miao Rongrong escaped from the Battle King's residence, Miao Rongrong's body was getting weaker and weaker. Even if it was those antidotes that Miao Rongrong brought back. Chapter 2471. Yiqing Luo didn't even lift her eyelids, speaking of eldest young Miss Miao. Miao Patriarch, the bottle of medicinal pills that eldest young Miss Miao snatched from me was something that I spent an entire month to refine, spending a huge amount of money to gather all the medicinal herbs. She paused as her lips curled into a mocking smile. I should settle this score with the Miao Patriarch. You poisoned Rongrong and still dare to ask me to settle this score for you? Miao Yixiong laughed in anger. Young lady, this is the Miao tribe and you're so arrogant in my territory, aren't you afraid that you won't be able to leave this place alive? Yiqing Luo finally raised her head. Her long and narrow eyes rose slightly as she shrugged her shoulders indifferently. It doesn't matter if I can leave the Miao tribe alive, but whether eldest Miss Miao can stay alive. Yi Luo. Miao Yixiong's imposing manner exploded, fierce and sharp, refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. His 5 fingers moved. A burst of dense profound energy burst forth from his palm. Yiqing Luo felt the ground shaking. Behind her, the 2 Bu elders' panicked cries could be heard. Yiqing Luo turned around and saw the wooden stake that the 2 Bu elders were sitting on suddenly rose up slowly. Sharp arrows flew out from all directions of the iron cage, heading straight for the 2 old men on the wooden stakes. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold. Her feet tapped lightly and her body leaped up agilely. The glower flame fan in her hand suddenly opened up and slashed out a burst of dense profound qi. Bam! The whirlwind created by the Xian qi knocked away all the sharp arrows. Yiqing Luo's other hand immediately pulled the 2 Bu elders down from the wooden stake. Immediately, the 3 of them landed steadily on the ground. Looking at the 2 old men who were still in a state of shock. Yiqing Luo's face revealed a trace of anger. Her eyes were cold as her lips curled into a cold arc. Miao Patriarch. You will pay the price for what you did earlier. Miao Yixiong totally disregarded Yiqing Luo's words. His gaze was sinister and malicious. Just based on the fact that you're trapped in my iron cage, with 2 burdens, you want me to pay the price? Really? Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a devilish smile. At the same time, he spat out these 2 words lightly. A gush of horrifying power encircled Yiqing Luo's surroundings, enveloping that young lady dressed in a long red dress, who was like a raging flame, tightly. The entire dungeon shook violently, causing the earth to quake and the mountains to sway. He could vaguely hear the sound of something falling to the ground. The smile on Miao Yixiong's face gradually froze. Yiqing Luo let go of the 2 Bu elders and lowered her voice. Stand further away, we will be able to leave soon. Yiqing Luo intentionally set up a simple enchantment around the 2 Bu family elders. This was formed from her spiritual power. Naturally, the profound energy she released would not have any effect on the barrier. What do you want to do? Miao Yixiong sensed that something was wrong. This power was so strong that it made him feel somewhat oppressed. Of course it's to make you pay the price. Yiqing Luo's red lips were alluring as she spat out one sentence at a time. His voice fell. Yiqing Luo leaped up. Dense dark force surged rapidly. Suddenly, like an exploding whirlpool, it landed on top of the iron cage. Bam, bam bam bam, a series of collisions and the sound of things falling to the ground were heard. That iron cage which had trapped Yiqing Luo and the other two inside. Under Yiqing Luo's profound chi attack, it collapsed with a loud bang. Miao Yixiong was jolted back a few steps. Chapter 2472. The ground was filled with dust and the iron bars were sent flying. Yiqing Luo lightly clapped her hands as her long and narrow eyes rose into a faint but cold arc. Now, Miao clan leader, how else do you think you can trap me? Miao Yixiong's malicious eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. His hands clenched into fists as his profound chi revolved around his body. Yiqing Luo's action of shattering the iron cage. It really gave him a huge shock. Although he knew in his heart that Yiqing Luo's ability was very strong. But he had never thought that Yiqing Luo's ability was actually above his. This young lady, was she really like what she looked like on the surface, just a 15-year-old young lady? What was her identity? Why did she go against the Miao clan time and time again? Miao Yixiong's gaze turned increasingly cold. In my Miao clan's territory, you think I can't trap you? He laughed coldly a few times. His sinister gaze slowly fell onto the two Bu elders behind Yiqing Luo. His smile became even colder. The Miao clan is not a place where you can come and go as you wish. Moreover, with those two burdens around, you can forget about leaving the Miao clan. The two Bu elders shivered. Then, bring it on, we can try. See if I have the ability to bring Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu away from the Miao clan. Towards Miao Yixiong's threat. Yiqing Luo was totally unmoved as she met Miao Yixiong's gaze calmly, as her lips twitched in ridicule. Miao Yixiong's gaze turned colder. You won't give up until all hope is gone. I'd like to see how arrogant you can be. His words had just ended when Miao Yixiong took a few steps back. Then he called out loudly, Lord Yu, I'll have to trouble you. Lord Yu? Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed. In her mind, a figure suddenly flashed past. The next moment, she saw a tall man, appearing in the dungeon. That man, overlapped with the figure which flashed past Yiqing Luo's mind. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly contracted as shock flashed past her eyes. Yu Ji. The man in front of her, wasn't he Lan Ling Nuo's personal guard? She had once crossed hands with him at the Peach Blossom restaurant, and she was still not his match. That man called Yu Ji? Why would he appear in the Miao tribe? Ha ha ha. You didn't expect this, did you? Miao Yixiong looked at Yiqing Luo's astonished expression and burst into laughter. Young lady, do you really think that your ability is so strong that no one in the world can match you? Arrogance and confidence depend on the situation and the person. Miao Yixiong's laughter was filled with smugness and coldness. He felt a sense of exhilaration. He was the leader of the Miao tribe. But in the hands of a 15-year-old girl, he had repeatedly suffered losses. Now, he could finally suppress this little girl's arrogance. He would find Yu Ji. Invite Yu Ji to the Miao tribe. It was to deal with Yiqing Luo. He learned from Miao Rongrong. The bodyguard brought by the East Wave County Lord, Lan Ling Nuo, was able to defeat Yi Luo easily. Therefore, he borrowed Yu Ji from Lan Ling Nuo. In the process of borrowing people from Lan Ling Nuo, Miao Yixiong also noticed some clues. Although on the surface, Yu Ji's identity was said to be Lan Ling Nuo's personal guard. But in fact, every time Lan Ling Nuo spoke, she had to look at Yu Ji's expression. Especially when it concerned Yu Ji. Lan Ling Nuo appeared to be even more careful. Chapter 2473. Of course, who exactly was Yu Ji? Miao Yixiong did not mind. He only cared about whether Yu Ji could get the antidote out of Yi Luo. Nothing else mattered to him. However, there was one thing that puzzled Miao Yixiong. When he sincerely invited Yu Ji to come to the Miao tribe to help him solve his biggest problem, Yu Ji didn't even finish his words before directly rejecting him. But after that, when he and Lan Ling Nua talked and mentioned the name Yi Luo, Yu Ji actually changed his attitude and agreed to it immediately. Then, she followed him to the Miao tribe. Miao Yixiong had originally planned to bring Yu Ji to Yi Luo. If Yi Luo didn't listen to her, then, let Yu Ji force Yi Luo to hand over the antidote. Who would have thought that Yi Luo would come to the Miao tribe alone for the sake of the two elders of the Bu family village? Coincidentally, Yu Ji was in the Miao tribe. This time, it could be said that Yi Luo had fallen into the tiger's den. Miao Yixiong recalled the scene of Yi Luo being tortured by Yu Ji, the scene of Yi Luo handing over the antidote and begging for mercy. The smile on Miao Yixiong's face grew even more smug. "Little girl, you're not Lord Nethery's match. You'd better surrender obediently." Standing behind Yu Ji, Miao Yixiong was full of confidence. "Actually, I'm not an unreasonable person. As long as you give me the antidote obediently and help Rongrong vent her anger, I'll naturally let you leave the Miao tribe." Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes with a look of disdain. Such a person, with such a face, was actually the patriarch of the Miaogu clan? Is there no one left in the Miao tribe? Letting such a brainless person become the clan leader? Aren't you afraid that the 100 years of prestige of the Miaogu clan will be destroyed? He was a dignified clan leader, a 45 to 54-year-old middle-aged man. He hid behind a young man. Furthermore, he was acting so arrogantly, using the young man as a stepping stone to criticize others. Why did Yiqing Luo feel that this clan leader was so childish that it made one laugh? Seeing that Yiqing Luo wasn't like what he had imagined, begging bitterly, instead she looked at him and smiled. Miao Yixiong's expression turned cold, and his eyes instantly became sharp. Just as Miao Yixiong was about to continue speaking, the young girl smiled sweetly, her eyes sparkling with a dreamy light. A sweet voice spilled out from the girl's pink lips. Chief's suggestion is not bad." Miao Yixiong's words were stuck in his throat. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. He felt an indescribable strange feeling. Yi Luo's smile, his tone. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't sound like he was agreeing with him. However, he couldn't tell what was strange about it. However, when he saw Yu Ji standing in front of him with a cold aura around him, he felt a chill run down his spine. Miao Yixiong reckoned that Yi Luo would not have a chance to make a comeback. He sneered, "You should have been this tactful from the start. Give me the antidote." Yiqing Luo touched her chin. "Even if I give it to you, do you really dare to let eldest Miss Miao take it? You?" Miao Yixiong clenched his fists. Indeed, even if Yiqing Luo really gave him the antidote, he did not dare to rashly give Rongrong the antidote. If Yiqing Luo gave him a fake antidote, wouldn't Rongrong also die? Miao Yixiong didn't know about the grudge between Yu Ji and Yi Luo. He only knew that if he took the antidote and left, and the antidote was fake, by then Yi Luo would be killed by Yu Ji. His precious daughter would be buried along with him. No. Absolutely not. Rongrong was the Miao tribe's future sacred maiden. This was the only chance for him to stabilize his position as the Miao tribe's clan leader. Chapter 2474. The more Miao Yixiong thought, the more flustered he became. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she saw through Miao Yixiong's thoughts. She scoffed and looked away in disdain. Yu Ji's expression was indifferent. He had been watching their battle in silence, and there was no trace of anxiety on his face. When Yiqing Luo's gaze fell onto him, Only then would there be a hint of arrogance between his brows. As though she looked down on Yiqing Luo from the start. To Yu-ji. The young girl in front of him was indeed not worthy of his attention. Secluded solitude, Yiqing Luo calmly called out Yu-ji's name. "You're here, is because of me?" Yu-ji frowned. "Yes. Who is your master?" Hearing Yu-ji's reply, Yiqing Luo was almost certain that this Yu-ji obviously knew her real identity under her disguise. Yu-ji would become Lan Ling Nuo's guard and come to the Northern Wave continent. It was probably because of her. These people with the surname Serenity, which plane of power did they belong to outside the Nirvana realm? Also, behind them, that venerable one. Who exactly was he? Why did he target her so many times? When you die, Yama will naturally tell you. Yu-ji sneered. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. "I know what I'm doing even if you don't answer." Yu-ji's eyes flickered. "Everyone says that you are eloquent and know how to use pretense to win people's hearts. It seems that it is indeed so. Is Yuhan talking about Yunu or Yunu?" Yiqing Luo didn't beat around the bush with him as her lips curled into a sneer. "To be able to conquer people's hearts, it means that you have ulterior motives and you have something that I can use against you." Her smile gradually curved her eyes, but her expression was still extremely cold. Yu-ji glanced at Miao Yixiong, who was rooted to the ground as if he had been petrified. There was obvious disgust in his eyes. Following that, he looked towards Yiqing Luo and spoke out impatiently, "Give him the antidote." "You want the antidote?" Yiqing Luo raised her brows and put on a smiling look. Yu-ji frowned. "What? Do you want me to use force?" But, even if you use force, you won't be able to get the things in my profound phoenix ring." Yiqing Luo's curved eyebrows blinked as she smiled in an infuriating manner. The profound phoenix ring was different from an ordinary interspatial ring. If it turned into an ordinary spatial ring, he wanted to take over the things inside the spatial ring. As long as he defeated his opponent and dug out his opponent's profound heart jade, he could use the power of the profound heart jade to open the spatial ring. However, the netherworld phoenix ring could only be opened by its owner. Yu-ji's eyes were cold and gloomy as it swept past the red jade ring on Yiqing Luo's fingertip. He suddenly flipped his palm, and a thick and strange black power rolled in his palm. Immediately following that, he had already struck towards Yiqing Luo's face at lightning speed. Lady Nethery, when Miao Yixiong saw this, he cried out in shock, "The antidote, the antidote." Scram! Yu-ji suddenly waved his sleeve. Miao Yixiong was sent flying by the shockwave and tumbled to the ground. She saw that powerful and majestic momentum enveloping Yiqing Luo from all directions. Miao Yixiong's pupils were filled with that black profound energy, as it exploded and collapsed in his eyes. The ground was shaking incessantly. It was as if this dungeon could collapse at any time. Under such circumstances, how could Yiqing Luo? How could she still be alive? Chapter 2475. Yu-ji's attention was all on Yiqing Luo's direction. He did not notice Miao Yixiong's crazy behavior. In a moment of carelessness, his arm was scratched by Miao Yixiong. Yu-ji's face darkened as he shook off Miao Yixiong. However, Miao Yixiong's emotions were no longer stable. He held on to Yu-ji tightly. Sharp nails pierced Yu-ji's skin. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Yu-ji fiercely. "You promised to get the antidote for me. How dare you go back on your word? How dare you violate our cooperation?" Yi Luo was dead. No one could cure the poison in Miao Rongrong's body. There was only 1.5 months left until the Saintess election. Miao Rongrong could not become the Saintess. The other clans would then take advantage of the situation to rise. His position as patriarch, "I can't sit still." There was nothing left. Miao Yixiong was filled with hatred towards Yu-ji. If it wasn't for Yuji's arrogance. He also wouldn't take advantage of Yuji's presence to mock Yi Luo repeatedly. Didn't Yi Luo want money? If it could be solved with money, then it wouldn't be a problem at all. At the very least, Rongrong could become the saintess. At the very least, he could keep his position as the patriarch. At that time, how much money would he have? The more Miao Yixiong thought about it, the more he wanted to strangle Yuji. But Miao Yixiong had never thought about it. The person who invited Yuji over from Lanling Nuo was himself. Even though he knew that Yuji's target was Yiqing Luo, he still chose to believe in her without any hesitation, which was himself. Relying on the momentum of secluded silence who had once defeated Yiqing Luo, the one who was arrogant was still himself. What right did he have to blame others? However, Miao Yixiong would probably never understand. Yuji was annoyed by Miao Yixiong's craziness. He furrowed his brows and waved his sleeve. Miao Yixiong's body was sent flying by the strong wind released by Yuji. With an indifferent expression, Yuji turned around and walked towards the exit of the dungeon. Miao Yixiong fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he grinned and laughed loudly. Yuji, why don't you leave? I've already planted the heart-devouring parasite in your body. Ha ha ha. As long as you leave a distance of 6 feet from me, the heart-devouring parasite in your body will eat you bit by bit, until all that's left of you is a skeleton. Yuji's figure paused, and his face was covered with a thin layer of coldness. How dare you? Miao Yixiong said fearlessly, I just want Rongrong's antidote. Once I get it, I'll cure you. Otherwise, all of you will be buried with the Miao tribe. In any case, he would lose the position of the Miao tribe leader. It was as if he had lost everything. Yuji lowered his head and looked at the wound on his arm that was bleeding black blood. It seemed that Miao Yixiong had used the opportunity of going berserk to plant a goo in his body. Damn it! He was too careless. The cultivation of goo and xian qi were completely different. Yuji did not dare to rashly use xian energy to force the goo worm out. Miao Yixiong, I can help you get the antidote, but I won't let you go. Yuji glanced at Miao Yixiong coldly. He did not like the feeling of being threatened. Once the goo was cured, he would kill Miao Yixiong. Miao Yixiong was not a fool, he could clearly see the killing intent in Yuji's eyes. But Miao Yixiong could only continue to pretend that he did not know. When he got the antidote, it would be up to him to cure Yuji's goo. If he could control Yuji in his hands and make Yuji work for him. Chapter 2476. Yuji suppressed his anger at being tricked. He took quick steps towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The rubble around the dungeon was about to collapse. In the air waves were still swirling violently. Smoke and dust covered everything in front of him, making it blurry. He could vaguely see that there seemed to be 3 people lying on the ground. He didn't think about anything else and directly walked in the direction of the figure. In Yuji's knowledge, he was the strongest person in the Nirvana realm. Even if Yiqing Luo wanted to play any tricks, none of them had any effect on him. Moreover, he had absolute confidence in himself. That strike just now. Even if Yiqing Luo wasn't dead, he only had one last breath left. Yuji walked closer. The figure on the ground was dressed in red. She was lying on the ground with her face facing the ground. Her messy black hair covered half of her face. Apparently, it was no doubt Yiqing Luo. Secluded silence half squatted down, his sword-like eyebrows furrowing slightly. On Yiqing Luo's body, there was a lady's delicate fragrance. It smelled much better than the artificial flowery fragrance on Dark Girl's body. Hey! Yuji reached out and gently pushed the figure lying on the ground. But the feeling of his palm touching her was not that of a young girl's soft body. Instead, it felt extremely solid. Yuji's eyes slightly widened as he suddenly realized something. He stood up abruptly and quickly tried to retreat. But just as he stood up, his vision was filled with dizziness. His body swayed and he fell heavily to the ground. Secluded solitude? Miao Yixiong was confused when he saw Yuji suddenly fall to the ground. He propped up his body that was injured by Yuji and walked over shakily. "Don't come over." Yuji gritted his teeth and growled. His voice was hoarse and devoid of strength. Miao Yixiong's face stiffened and he stopped in his tracks. From this angle, he just happened to be able to see the young girl in red lying on the ground in front of Yuji, and she seemed to be dead and didn't move at all. Yi Luo's corpse. However, if it was Yi Luo's corpse, how did Yuji suddenly become like this? Yuji was an expert who could easily defeat Yi Luo. Miao Yixiong was puzzled and looked again. Only then did he realize that the person wrapped in the red clothes was not a young girl, but a piece of steel. He then looked at the two faintly discernible figures not far behind him. There was no need to guess. It was definitely the broken steel of the iron cage. This realization caused Miao Yixiong's eyes to gradually light up. This meant that Yi Luo was not dead. Since Yi Luo was still alive, Rongrong's poison could be neutralized. Yiqing Luo led the Bu family's two elders, as they carefully sneaked around the dimly lit Miao Stockade village. Fortunately, the Miao Stockade village cave was a forbidden area for the Miao tribe. Apart from the entrance and certain places within the Miao Stockade village's cave that were guarded by guards, other than the entrance and certain places within the Miao Stockade village's cave, there were no other patrolling guards. The three of them did not run into anyone along the way. But what gave Yiqing Luo a headache was, Peach did not have a map of the Miao Stockade village. After all, it was the forbidden land of the Miao tribe. No matter how powerful Peach was, she couldn't get the map of the forbidden area. Previously, when she followed Third Elder Miao into the Miao Stockade village cave, the totem on the wall had a huge impact on her. As a result, she had no way of memorizing the route. She could only follow the feeling in her memory and led the Bu family's two elders away. Young lady. Chapter 2477. Elder T was panting heavily as his face turned pale. "That's right, young lady, leave on your own. You will definitely be able to leave the Miao tribe. Let's leave together." Yiqing Luo interrupted their persuasion without hesitation. "Don't you believe in my ability? I know you're very powerful. But no matter how powerful you are alone, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands." Elder T's face was filled with sweat from nervousness and running. His moist eyes were filled with emotion. "Little girl, it's enough that you've done so much for us 2 old fellows who don't even know each other. We know that you have a kind heart, but we shouldn't have harmed you just to survive. From the moment you chose to believe me in the Bu family village, we are no longer strangers." Yiqing Luo lowered her voice and said gently, "In the Bu family village, you believed me once. Believe me again today, I will definitely bring you away. Yi is still waiting for you. Yi." Grandma Bu's voice choked as she called out this name. Tears rolled down from her eyes. "We are ordinary people, following you will only implicate you." Elder T hugged his old wife tightly. "Me and this old wife have lived for more than half a year. Even if we die here, it doesn't matter. Before I die, I'm already satisfied that I can wait for this old wife. I won't leave you alone. If you don't want to implicate me, then listen to me." Yiqing Luo held onto each of them and used her own strength to support the 2 old men. "Go." If it was somewhere else, Yiqing Luo would definitely let Shiju out and carry the 2 old men away. But in the Miao village cave, it was strange and eerie. That pair of jade eyes, the big bloody mouth, the roar of a wild beast. All of these were deeply imprinted in Yiqing Luo's mind. She couldn't summon teas and was worried that Shiju would be affected by that pair of jade eyes. Especially summoning Shiju would expose their whereabouts. Yiqing Luo could only use her own strength to support the two old men as they left. Not even a few steps away. Yiqing Luo's ears twitched. Following that, her eyes congealed slightly. Someone was approaching. Did Yu Ji discover that she had made use of steel to create the illusion of their corpses? Then used the blink movement secret art to escape the dungeon? She purposely poisoned her robe. Once Yu Ji got close, the fragrance from the robe would seep into his skin. Yu Ji will definitely be poisoned. It was impossible for him to catch up to them so quickly. However, the aura behind him was getting closer and closer. Yiqing Luo didn't have any other choice as her gaze swiftly surveyed the surroundings and directly headed towards the nearest corner in a flash. She brought the two elders of the Bu family and hid in a dark corner. The sound of a group of orderly footsteps could be heard. Yiqing Luo sneaked a glance from the corner of her eyes. Sure enough, it was someone dressed as a Miao guard. It seemed that her escape with the Bu family's two elders had been discovered. Yu Ji didn't chase after them himself. This meant that he was indeed poisoned. These people must have been sent by Miao Yixiong to find Miao Rongrong's antidote. If Miao Yixiong was searching for her, she still had the confidence to win. He was sure that Yu Ji was poisoned. He couldn't do anything to her for the time being. Yiqing Luo's heart relaxed a little. Gotcha. Suddenly, there was a pulling force behind her. Granny Bu softly exclaimed, "Old man." Chapter 2478. Behind Yiqing Luo was originally a wall. Even if he fell, he would only fall to the ground. But Yiqing Luo only felt that her body was empty. Then, his body began to fall rapidly. Yiqing Luo's reaction was swift as she grabbed Grandma Bu's hand tightly. Granny Bu held Elder T's hand tightly. The three of them descended at an extremely fast speed. Yiqing Luo was adjusting her breathing and releasing her profound energy while sensing the surrounding atmosphere, making preparations to descend anytime. The more he fell. The more Yiqing Luo thought about it, the more astonished she became. This hole was at least 1,000 meters wide. How could there be such a deep cave under the Hmong stockade village? They continued to fall for a while. Yiqing Luo was keenly aware of the changes in the air flow. She immediately released her profound energy to slow down the speed of their descent. Then, he summoned Shiju. Shiju's massive body caught the three of them firmly. Very soon, Shiju landed on the ground. It was pitch black all around. The two elders of the Bu family simply couldn't see what was underneath. They were still in a state of shock, their bodies trembling as they constantly groped for the things beneath them. He only felt a ball of soft fur. Everything's fine now. Yiqing Luo gently held the two elderly's hands and comforted them softly. The darkness did not hinder her at all. Yiqing Luo could see her surroundings clearly. This was an oval-shaped cave. There was nothing inside, and it was completely empty. She jumped down from Shiju's body and took out a luminous pearl. The cave was not spacious. A luminous pearl was enough to illuminate the surroundings. When the light returned to their eyes. When the two Bu family elders saw the thing they were sitting on, it was a huge black leopard, and they almost fainted from fright. Luckily Elder T's reaction was fast. Seeing Shiju's huge head rubbing against Yiqing Luo's arm bit by bit, he heaved a sigh of relief and pulled the old woman into his arms to pacify her. "Old woman is all right, this is a pet raised by a young lady, it's all right, it's all right." The relationship between an old couple was as beautiful as their first love. Just rest on Shiju's back for a while. She's a battle-type war pet and can protect you, don't be afraid. Yiqing Luo patted Shiju's head gently and immediately walked away. Shiju took small steps as it followed behind Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo took a look at the surroundings. There were no traces of any mechanism in the surroundings. Could it be that this place was really just a cave? Were they going to die in this cave? Yiqing Luo calculated in her mind the distance from the top to here. The idea of using profound energy or relying on Shiju to fly up. It was obviously impossible. They would definitely fall midway due to exhaustion. Young lady, you. Are you looking for an exit? Elder T was carried on Shiju's back as he followed Yiqing Luo for a few rounds and asked hesitantly. Yiqing Luo nodded. Look at the ground, there. Elder T pointed to the place where they had just fallen. I remember that I saw something there, but it was very blurry. I couldn't see it clearly, the ground. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. She only cared about looking for traces on the surrounding walls. But he forgot to look at the ground. Following the direction that Elder T pointed, Yiqing Luo quickly walked over. As expected, when they fell, the place where they were blocked by Shiju's enormous body, there was a very complicated but very obvious mark. However, perhaps too much time had passed. The ground was very dirty. It was impossible to clearly see what these marks were. Yiqing Luo squatted down and touched it with her hand. Chapter 2479. There was indeed something strange about the ground. I'll hold this pearl for you. Elder T saw Yiqing Luo's solemn expression and wanted to do something for her. Yiqing Luo didn't refuse and placed the luminous pearl in Elder T's hand. Elder T held the luminous pearl and stood by Yiqing Luo's side, trying his best to make the luminous pearl's light so that Yiqing Luo could see the ground more clearly. With one hand free, Yiqing Luo began to use both hands to feel the concave feeling of the ground. Her fingertips brushed past and her mind followed this outline, slowly forming a picture in her mind. This concave outline was very big. It occupied at least 1/3 of the cave's terrain. Such a big outline. She had just run several laps in this cave and actually didn't find this outline. Yiqing Luo secretly ridiculed herself in her heart. When did she become so careless? After describing it bit by bit, the outline that her palm touched gradually formed in her mind. It was an extremely huge beast. Yiqing Luo hadn't been able to figure out the specific shape. But Yiqing Luo could be sure that this was a beast whose size was at least bigger than Shiju, Qi, or Qi Yan. But she couldn't be sure. Was it the carvings on the ground that carved this beast into such a huge one, perhaps to figure out the overall shape of this beast? Then she could leave this cave. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up slightly, her hands that were exploring also sped up and began to explore the interior of the beast. This was the head, eyes, nose, mouth. Yiqing Luo touched down bit by bit, while forming the shape of the beast's head in her mind. Her fingers suddenly touched a sharp place. A sharp pain came. She trembled slightly and quickly retracted her hand. A hole was cut on her fingertip. Fresh blood gushed out. She looked down and looked at the place where her hand was cut. It was the beast's totem's teeth. The sharp teeth were still stained with her blood. That drop of bright red blood made this carved beast seem to add a bit of vitality. This thought made Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly tightened. In a trance, she once again saw that pair of green eyes. The bloody mouth that was stained with blood let out a low roar. The eyes of the totem imprinted on the ground flickered with a faint green color. Little girl, suddenly, he heard Elder T's urgent call. Then, his body shook violently. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes with heavy eyelids. She then met Elder T's worried eyes. Little girl, what's wrong? Are you okay? Yiqing Luo's breathing gradually calmed down. His eyes gradually regained their clarity. What happened to me? Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as she recalled that pair of jade green eyes which she had faintly seen earlier, and her heart constricted tightly. You just... Elder T hesitated, as if he was choosing his words carefully. You looked like you were possessed. You stared at the ground and looked like you were in a trance. You didn't seem to hear me when I talked to you. It was the same thing again. Earlier, when he had followed Third Elder Miao to the dungeon, he had encountered such a situation. When Yiqing Luo saw that pair of jade-green eyes on the surrounding walls, it had happened before. Now, it was that pair of green eyes again. It was a bloody mouth. It was a wild beast's roar. What on earth was going on? Chapter 2480. Why did the Miao tribe treat the cave as a forbidden place? Especially the totem on the wall. She couldn't even mention it. Third Elder Miao's fear towards the cave, Yiqing Luo could feel it clearly. So, this totem, this beast, what did it represent to the Miao tribe? What secret was it hiding? If she could figure this out, not only could she leave this godforsaken place. Moreover, she could coerce the Miao tribe to follow her to the East Continent to help Long Yunzhan suppress the poison. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, suppressing the messy thoughts in her mind. She smiled at Elder T and shook her head. I'm fine, just a little tired from staring at this totem, so I took a rest. I have some clues now. After confirming that Yiqing Luo was fine, Elder T was relieved. Yiqing Luo placed all her attention on the totem on the ground. Her palm followed the internal contour of the beast, confirming the body structure of the beast bit by bit. Perhaps she was highly focused. She didn't see it. The drop of blood on the totem's tooth was disappearing bit by bit. At the same time, the totem's protruding eyes. Bit by bit, it shone with a faint jade luster. Under the dazzling luminous pearl. Extremely weak. Yi Luo. How dare you trespass the Miao tribe's forbidden area? Suddenly, a deep and resounding roar resounded from within the cave. The young lady who was groping the totem on the ground frowned slightly when she heard the voice. It's coming. It's coming. Elder T's hand which was holding the luminous pearl trembled. Yiqing Luo raised her head and saw that there wasn't any mechanism at all. On the wall of the deep and long underground cave, a huge worm-shaped hole which was about the size of an adult man's body was reflected in her eyes. It was said to be a worm-shaped hole. It was indeed a giant worm. Its body was a giant hole. But the antennae on its head and the thin black legs were still swaying randomly. A figure walked out from the body of the giant worm. It was the Miao tribe leader, Miao Yixiong. Miao Yixiong's gaze fell on Yiqing Luo. When he saw that Yiqing Luo was still alive, his eyes were burning with passion. Yi Luo, it's really you. This forbidden land of the Miao tribe was a taboo that the Miao tribe had guarded for hundreds of years. Once someone approached the forbidden area, they would be killed. Miao Yixiong could use the goo worms left there to sense the aura changes in the forbidden area. Yi Luo was the only one who trespassed into the Miao tribe. Therefore, when it sensed that there was a human aura in the forbidden land, it immediately went into hiding. Miao Yixiong did not hesitate and directly used the Miao tribe's most taxing and most harmful teleportation goo worm to teleport to the forbidden area. As expected, it was Yi Luo. She was alive. Still alive. The expression on Miao Yixiong's face was gradually tainted with madness and joy. Yi Luo, give me the antidote, give me the antidote. Yiqing Luo picked her ears as her face was filled with impatience. She was about to crack the secret of the totem. But he was interrupted by Miao Yixiong. No matter who it was, at this moment, they would be so angry that they wanted to slap this person to death. However, Miao Yixiong only had the antidote in his heart. Didn't you want the coins? I'll give it to you. However much you want, I'll give it to you. As long as you give me the antidote. I will absolutely not interfere in the matter between you and Yu Ji. Miao Yixiong said anxiously, the eagerness in his eyes was exceptionally obvious. Star. Chapter 2481. Yiqing Luo, was there something wrong with him? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she looked at him impatiently. Miao clan leader, how big of a face do you have? After finding someone to kill me, you still tried in vain to buy the antidote from me. As she spoke, the disdain and mockery in her eyes deepened. If it was before, I would have been quite willing to make this deal with you. However, I'm not in a good mood right now, so, there's no room for discussion. You. Miao Yixiong trembled with anger. But when he thought of the poison in Miao Rongrong's body, he could only suppress his anger. After the earlier scene where Yiqing Luo almost died in Yu Ji's hands, Miao Yixiong was now a little paranoid. He absolutely could not let Yiqing Luo die. He absolutely had to make Yiqing Luo hand over the antidote. Yi Luo, Yu Ji has already been poisoned. I can hand him over to you and you can deal with him as you wish. Miao Yixiong suddenly recalled the grudge between Yu Ji and Yiqing Luo. Do you think you can control him? Yiqing Luo looked at Miao Yixiong in amusement, unable to imagine how this Miao tribe's leader could be so naive. Miao Yixiong knew how strong Yu Ji was. That was why he specially invited Yu Ji to deal with her. Now that he felt that Yu Ji was poisoned, he wanted to decide whether Yu Ji would live or die. Miao Yixiong's eyes turned cold. He clenched his fists and said, he's been poisoned by my heart-devouring parasite. As long as he's 10 feet away from me, he'll be devoured from the inside out. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. This Miao Yixiong still had some brains at the crucial moment. He knew how to use goo poison to threaten secluded silence. Yiqing Luo suddenly thought of something as her lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. Tenjiang, she chuckled. This cave seems to be more than 10 feet away from the surface. Miao Yixiong's face turned pale. That is to say, Yu Ji's internal organs have already been devoured by the heart-devouring worm. Coupled with the corrosion of the poison, TSK. Yiqing Luo continued as she shook her head, he's already dead, how are you going to hand him over to me? Miao Yixiong's face alternated between green and white. His body stiffened and trembled slightly. The veins on his forehead bulged one by one. It was obvious that he was furious. Yiqing Luo leisurely stood up, as her hand gently caressed Shiju's head. Her long and narrow eyes were slightly curved. He had a leisurely look on his face. It was as if the person trapped in the Miao tribe and unable to leave was not her at all. Miao Yixiong restrained his emotions. His chest heaved up and down. For the future. For the future. He needed Yi Luo's help. He had only been humiliated by Yi Luo. Once he got his hands on the antidote, he could torture Yi Luo however he wanted. Just as he was thinking of softening his tone and discussing the conditions with Yiqing Luo, Miao Yixiong's eyes widened unconsciously. He froze on the spot. He stared foolishly at Yiqing Luo's back without blinking. His face was filled with astonishment and disbelief. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she carefully turned her head and looked behind her. A wave of jade-green light covered the sky and covered the earth. In an instant, it covered her eyes. She felt a stinging pain in her eyes, and her body swayed for a moment. She couldn't help but close her eyes and raise her hand to block the intense green brilliance from hurting her eyes. Yiqing Luo didn't see. The place where she was standing was right under her feet, in the center of the totem. Rays of jade-green light followed the outline of the totem, as it continued to extend. Chapter 2482. This scene was clearly reflected in Miao Yixiong's eyes. He was frightened. He staggered backwards, not daring to touch that little bit of jade-green light. Seal. The seal has been unlocked. The seal that had been sealed for 700 years has been unlocked. His voice was hoarse and filled with fear. Yiqing Luo was shrouded in the jade green light, but she didn't feel anything special. Only her eyes were pierced by the light and could only open a slit. What entered her eyes was still jade green. She couldn't see anything else. However, since Miao Yixiong was not far away, she could still hear the words he shouted clearly. Seal? What did Miao Yixiong mean by seal? Was this piece of jade green light the so-called seal? What was sealed in this cave? Gradually, the surrounding light finally dissipated. Her vision was soothed and Yiqing Luo slowly opened her eyes. When she saw the scene below her feet, even she was stunned. Only to see the totem outline under her feet was flashing, emitting jade green light. The light wasn't strong. She hadn't had time to take a closer look at the totem carved on the ground. What kind of beast was it? Suddenly, there was a turbulence under her feet. Yiqing Luo's body was unstable as she swayed slightly. The totem under her feet actually tore open a crack from the center. The crack gradually widened. Yiqing Luo immediately leaped up. By the time she stood in a safe place, the crack on the ground had already split open by more than half. Under the crack, there was a piece of jade green light and nothing could be seen clearly. The crack was about half the size of the totem. The entire cave's turbulence stopped. The cave fell into a strange silence. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she stared at the crack on the ground, trying to see clearly what was under the crack. But other than a piece of jade green, there was still a piece of jade green. Yi Luo. Stop. You stop. Suddenly, Miao Yixiong's anxious roar came from behind. That voice had a trace of panic. Yi Luo, this seal must not be unlocked. Once it is unlocked, the entire Nirvana realm will be affected. Yiqing Luo was about to ask what kind of seal it was when she heard that. Two cries of suppressed fear could be heard. Then came Miao Yixiong's furious roar, these two old farts are now in my hands. If you don't want them to die, stop. The two elders of the Bu family. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted. Wasn't Shijue protecting the two elders of the Bu family? With Miao Yixiong's ability, it was impossible for him to take the two Bu elders away from Shiju. Yiqing Luo immediately turned around and looked towards Miao Yixiong's direction. He saw Miao Yixiong grabbing a man's neck with one hand, his expression sinister. Shiju, on the other hand, stood at the side, its black fur standing on end as it bared its teeth and blew at Miao Yixiong. Shijue. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. Hearing its master's voice, Shiju's arrogance instantly dropped as it whimpered a few times towards Yiqing Luo in grievance. It's not its fault, Grandma Bu's neck was being grabbed. Although Miao Yixiong didn't use much strength, but she was after all an ordinary person and he was already old, so his words sounded weak. It's us, ourselves, we don't want to drag you down, so we left its back, hoping to let it help you. So, sorry young lady, we've dragged you down again. Elder T was filled with guilt. Chapter 2483. The Miao tribe's seal was released. That would definitely be disadvantageous to the young lady. A Miao tribe leader, plus the so-called seal. The two Bu elders were worried that the young lady couldn't handle it alone. So they thought of using this battle pet to help the young lady. Whoever knew, they ended up dragging the young lady down. To let the young lady be coerced by the Miao tribe leader because of them, it's alright. Yiqing Luo spoke softly as she comforted the two Bu elders, don't be afraid, he won't touch you. Whether he moves or not depends on your performance. Miao Yixiong finally had a hostage to restrain Yi Luo and heaved a sigh of relief. But at the same time, there were some doubts in his heart. Wasn't it said that Yi Luo was someone from another continent? Why was he so familiar with the Bu family village? Everyone could see that. Yiqing Luo was very concerned about the two Bu elders. She didn't even hesitate to enter the Miao tribe alone to save them. In his mind, he suddenly remembered what third elder Miao had said before. Yi Luo was most likely related to the missing Miao tribe traitor in the Bu family village. This thought made Miao Yixiong's expression congeal. He raised his malicious eyes and looked at Yiqing Luo coldly. "Leave the seal and come over here." He paused and hurriedly shook his head. Wait, don't come over. You. Stand over there." Miao Yixiong pointed to a place opposite him. Miao Yixiong knew that he wasn't Yi Luo's opponent. If Yi Luo went near him, there was a high possibility that he would save the hostage. This was his only bargaining chip now. Yiqing Luo didn't make any sarcastic remarks this time. Instead, she directly walked towards the direction that Miao Yixiong pointed. Seeing Yiqing Luo being so obedient, Miao Yixiong heaved a sigh of relief. Before he opened his mouth, he was interrupted by Yiqing Luo coldly. "You want the antidote?" "Antidote, naturally." Miao Yixiong's words were swallowed back as he answered Yiqing Luo's question. But immediately, his expression suddenly turned gloomy. "But, young lady, the bargaining chip is in my hands now, so you should be the one begging me. If you want these two people to live, then listen to me obediently." Miao Yixiong's tone was extremely arrogant. As though he wanted to get back at Yiqing Luo for all the humiliation he had suffered previously. "All right, go ahead." Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she generously spread out her hands. She moved. Miao Yixiong cautiously grabbed the necks of the Bu family's elders and took a few steps back. "You. Don't move." "I won't move." Yiqing Luo smiled even more indifferently. But the more she laughed, the more she laughed. In Miao Yixiong's eyes. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Now you know how to be obedient. In order to suppress the strange feeling in his heart, Miao Yixiong focused his attention on Yiqing Luo. This arrogant little girl was now so obedient. It was enough to prove that the two elders of the Bu family were very important to her. His eyes turned cold and suddenly he sneered. "Little girl, I am not a narrow-minded person. How about you, kneel down in front of me now and kowtow to me twice, then the matter of you poisoning Rong, trespassing into the Miao tribe and even breaking the seal that the Miao tribe had guarded for 700 years, will be written off." "No. No way." The two elders of the Bu family immediately stopped him when they heard that. How could they possibly let the young lady kneel down for them? Although they had not spent much time with the young lady. But they were clear. The young lady was an extremely confident person. It was absolutely impossible for her to lower her head to anyone. Such a proud and unyielding young lady. Chapter 2484. Most importantly. Even if Yiqing Luo was willing, they weren't willing. "Shut up." Miao Yixiong shouted coldly as his hands exerted more strength. Bu Lao Er coughed violently as both of their hands tried to break the fingers on their necks. Looking at the two of them who were like ants being pinched in her palms, struggling on their deathbed. Miao Yixiong finally had the pleasure of being able to hold his head high in the air. Thinking of how he had begged Yiqing Luo several times to give him the antidote. Thinking of Yiqing Luo's high and mighty attitude of not giving him any charity. Miao Yixiong's eyes were burning with excitement. "Kneel down. Quickly kneel down." "No. No. Ah." Before Elder T could finish his words, his neck was strangled by a force. He cried out miserably as his body stiffened and his struggling stopped as his eyelids started to roll. "Yi Luo, if you don't kneel down, I will kill this old man and then this old woman." Miao Yixiong couldn't wait to see Yiqing Luo being trampled under his feet. He was the dignified Miao clan leader. He had always been high up. How could he suffer a loss in the hands of a young lady time and time again? He wanted to destroy this humiliation. He was still the noble Miao clan leader. Yiqing Luo's gaze was fixed on Elder T without blinking. Looking at Elder T's pale face and eyelids rolling outwards, as though he was on his last breath. Her gaze turned colder and colder. That gaze made Miao Yixiong's heart tremble for no reason. You! How dare you look at me with such a gaze? Miao Yixiong instinctively took a few steps back. You're not allowed to look. I order you to kneel on the ground and look at me pitifully while wagging your tail. He was shouting so fiercely. But his hands had subconsciously loosened the grip on the two old men. How would he dare to kill the two Bulao heir? This was his only bargaining chip. Why? Miao clan leader, you've captured 2 hostages and this is your only request. Yiqing Luo finally opened her mouth. Her voice was cold and no one could tell the emotions in her words. Miao Yixiong clenched his teeth as he growled fiercely, right. This is my only request. Are you going to kneel or not? I won't kneel. Yiqing Luo spat out 2 decisive words. Good, very good. You don't want to kneel? If you don't kneel, I'll kill him. Miao Yixiong's eyes were red with anger. He raised the arm that was strangling Elder T. He threatened, hoping to see a flustered expression on Yiqing Luo's face. But, Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she smiled gently. Miao tribe leader, do you really dare to attack? Her smile was filled with disdain and ridicule. Her long and narrow eyes slowly turned contemptuous. As long as something happens to them, the next person to die will be you. Her voice was soft. It was a very unusual conversational tone. Every word was like a hammer to Miao Yixiong's heart. He was so terrified that even his pores were dilating and his body was trembling. Miao Yixiong knew this very well. Yi Luo was serious. She had the absolute strength and confidence to kill him. Moreover, if he was the slightest bit careless, there was a high possibility that Yi Luo could save the two Bulao heir from his hands. After thinking for a moment, Miao Yixiong's arrogance gradually dissipated. His 2 hands loosened from the two Bulao heirs' necks and grabbed their shoulders instead. Chapter 2485. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. This Miao tribe leader was really rather adaptable to circumstances. He could be high and mighty in an instant. And he could be humble in an instant. Freely retreating and advancing. Suddenly, she understood the reason why he was able to sit on the position of tribe leader for such a long time. After all, if one was shameless, he would be invincible. Seeing Yiqing Luo staring at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile, Miao Yixiong felt goosebumps. He understood her emotions and moved her with reason. This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds, what you just opened is the seal that the Miao tribe had been guarding for 700 years. Luckily, this seal is not completely opened and there's still one last layer of seal left. If the last layer of seal is opened, not only the Miao tribe will be in danger, the entire Nirvana realm will be affected and affected. Both of us are injured, so there's no way you can leave this place. So now, I should have the conditions to discuss the deal with you. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose as her gaze slowly fell onto that crack which had split open. What kind of seal is this? Yiqing Luo didn't answer Miao Yixiong's deal but asked the doubt in her heart. The Miao tribe's seal. Why would it have such a huge impact on her? Miao Yixiong frowned as he felt displeased, but he had no choice but to answer, I'm not too sure what it is exactly. This is the ancestral order passed down by our ancestors. Every generation of tribe leader has to do their best to protect this seal from being opened. Yiqing Luo nodded her head thoughtfully. Yi Luo, if you want to leave this forbidden grounds, only I can help you. So if you give me the antidote, I will let the three of you leave immediately and promise that I will not find any trouble with anyone in the Bu family village. Miao Yixiong saw that Yiqing Luo wasn't going to mention about the deal, so he might as well tell her his conditions directly. Why should I believe you? Yiqing Luo shrugged. You hate me and need the Bu family village's people to find the traitor. If I give you the antidote, will you really let the three of us leave? Miao Yixiong's eyes flashed as his expression gradually turned cold. You can only choose to believe me. He paused for a moment. The expression on his face gradually became ferocious, adding a hint of madness. Yi Luo, you should know that if Miao Rongrong dies, she won't be able to become the holy maiden, and I'll be ruined. Since I'm ruined, why don't we all die together? Yiqing Luo could tell that when Miao Yixiong said these words, his eyes were almost bloodshot red, filled with madness and a trace of chilliness. He was serious. If he destroys himself, in that case, he might as well destroy everything. Yiqing Luo scoffed in disdain. A selfish person like Miao Yixiong was truly cold-blooded and emotionless. He had asked her for the antidote time and time again. It was not for Miao Rongrong's life. It was because Miao Rongrong was about to become the holy maiden of the Miao tribe. If he was destroyed, might as well destroy everything and be buried with him. Little girl, now, you only have one choice. You can only choose to believe me. Miao Yixiong didn't care about what Yiqing Luo was thinking about him. You must know that your ability alone is strong, but with these two burdens dragging you down, don't even think of leaving the Miao tribe easily. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. Her eyes were filled with a chilly intent. After some time, her eyes swept past the two Bu family elders and immediately closed her eyes as she opened her mouth. Ah! Chapter 2486. Granny Boo's body smashed heavily into the stone wall beside her. The old lady's weak body was trembling in pain from this sudden fall. And the next moment, Elder T took this opportunity to shake off Miao Yixiong's arm and rushed to Grandma Boo's side. Grandpa Boo, Grandma Boo. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. She didn't expect them to use such a method to escape from Miao Yixiong's restraint. She hurriedly looked at Shiju. Shiju understood, and its huge body flew towards the direction of the two Bu elders. Miao Yixiong was shocked. The two Bu elders were his only bargaining chips with Yiqing Luo. He absolutely could not let them return to Yiqing Luo's side. He didn't have a second chance to restrain Yiqing Luo. However, what no one had expected was, after the two Bu elders broke free from Miao Yixiong's restraint, they didn't escape towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Instead, they headed towards the crack which was emitting a faint green light not too far away. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as she suddenly realized something. Grandpa Boo, Grandma Boo, you don't do anything silly, I said I can bring you. Young lady. Elder T, who was standing in front of the crack, stopped in his tracks. That wrinkled face revealed a comfortable smile for the first time since today's thrilling journey. His hand and Grandma Boo's hand held tightly. Don't come over. He looked at Miao Yixiong without a trace of fear. Come over and we'll jump down. Miao Yixiong stopped in his tracks. Shiju also stopped. Two people and one beast stared intently at the two Bu elders. Shiju stopped because he was afraid that something would happen to them. And Miao Yixiong stopped because he was afraid that he would lose the bargaining chip to restrain Yiqing Luo. Grandpa Boo. Yiqing Luo's fingers curled tightly. You come with Shiju, I can bring you away. The two Bu elders looked at each other and smiled. Their brows were filled with gentleness. Young lady, thank you for everything you have done for the Bu family village. Thank you for caring for me and old madam. Elder T smiled contentedly as he said every word. His voice was on the verge of choking. We don't want to be your burden. We don't want to see you suffer because of us. As Elder T spoke, Tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes. "You are a good girl with a kind heart. We can't bear to see such a good girl like you suffer for us." "Grandpa Boo." Yiqing Luo's heart tightened. She who had never been rich in emotions, couldn't help but feel a sour feeling at the corner of her eyes. "I'm not making things difficult for you, and you're not my burden." In the beginning, she had helped them in the Boo family village. It was because the simplicity of the Boo family village had moved her. He was used to the darkness of the world. She could see a trace of clean color, which made her feel very comfortable. Later, she came to the Miao tribe and saved the 2 elders of the Boo family. Part of the reason was because of Miao Yi. But more than that, it was because she really felt sorry for the Boo family's elders. She didn't like to meddle in other people's business. However, he was not a cold and heartless person. She was serious about saving the 2 elders of the Boo family and bringing them away from the Miao tribe. Chapter 2487. I think the old man should have told you about our matters. Back then, for the future of the next generation, I brought my family and moved to Qinghua City. Our village, at least 30 over people, brought their families along with them. But we had just left the Boo family village when we were stopped by the Miao people. Grandma Boo stared at Miao Yixiong with her teary eyes. Her eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. The Miao people carried out a brutal massacre on us without any explanation. The 30 over people who left the Boo family village, from the elderly to the newborn babies, all died tragically in the hands of the Miao people. Those people were the hope of the Boo family village, the few youngsters. All died. Died in front of my eyes. My son and daughter are all dead. Only I survived. Shut up. Miao Yixiong's heart trembled. What he was afraid of was not Grandma Boo's hatred towards him. But he was afraid that Grandma Boo's words would bring out Yiqing Luo's hatred towards the Miao people and seek revenge for Grandma Boo. Grandma Boo gave a low laugh. Her laughter was filled with pain and mournfulness. Miao Yixiong. What people do, the heavens are watching. It's not that revenge is not coming, it's just that it's not time yet. You killed so many people in my Boo family village. In the future, don't even think about having a peaceful day. Miao Yixiong, the old man and I swear on our lives that even if we become ghosts, we will never let you off. We will turn into malicious spirits and haunt you forever. She laughed. The hoarse and aged voice had a hint of delight in it. She laughed for a long time. She slowly looked towards Yiqing Luo. The craziness on her face slowly turned gentle. Young lady. I'm sorry, really sorry. If it's possible, I hope you can avenge those innocent villagers in the Boo family village, so that we can die without regrets. Grandma Boo. Yiqing Luo understood Grandma Boo's current feelings. Seeing her own kin, her neighbors and good friends who had accompanied her for decades, die in front of her. No matter who it was, no one would be able to tolerate it. Grandma Boo had endured for such a long time. That was her biggest limit. If it wasn't for Yi, I would have died when the Boo family village was massacred. She is a pitiful lady, without parents and no one to rely on. If it's possible, please help us, take good care of her. Grandma Boo. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. She shouted at Shijue, quick! Bring Grandpa Boo and Grandma Boo over. Roar! Shiju roared, and its body turned into a bolt of black lightning, rushing toward the Boo family's 2 elders. However, in the end, Shijue was a step too late. The Boo family's 2 elders had already made up their minds. He didn't give Yiqing Luo any chance to persuade him to stay. At the moment when Shiju pounced over, they clasped their hands and looked at each other. Her eyes were filled with a warm smile. Then, he leaped into the crack, and both of them fell into the jade-green light. In an instant, he disappeared without a trace. Grandpa Boo. Grandma Boo, Yi Qing Luo's eyes widened as she stared blankly at that crack. The two elders of the Boo family didn't want to be a burden to her. Resolutely, he chose death. They knew very well that in this battle between Gu masters and Xian cultivators, they were ordinary people. He would only be a burden. Therefore, in order to let her not feel guilty, in order to let her leave with peace of mind. Chapter 2488. No. No. Miao Yixiong was filled with terror as he staggered backwards a few steps. His back was plastered tightly against the wall. Beads of cold sweat rolled down his forehead. His entire body was drenched in sweat. He who had lost his bargaining chip and hostage. How was he going to negotiate with Yi Qing Luo? Especially, his attitude earlier had completely infuriated Yi Qing Luo. If Yi Qing Luo wanted to kill him in this place, this forbidden place which was isolated from the Miao tribe, he had no way to resist at all. Especially, earlier before Grandma Boo died, she specially requested Yi Qing Luo to avenge the people in the Boo family village. Yi Qing Luo was so concerned about that old fellow in the Boo family village. She would definitely kill him. The more Miao Yixiong thought, the more terrified he was. His entire body was trembling with fear. No way. He absolutely could not sit still and wait for death. He was the clan leader of the Miao tribe. How could he lose to a young lady? Miao Yixiong's vision slowly shifted to the side, where the worm-shaped hole was. A plan was formed in his mind. Just at this moment, there was a violent tremor in the hole. In an instant, rays of light that were as sharp as blades rippled out from the surroundings like waves. Boom boom boom, a few loud sounds were heard as the ground shook. The four walls which were as hard as iron were sliced apart layer by layer. The jade-green rays on the broken walls were piercingly cold. Extremely neat. This violent tremor, it made Yi Qing Luo and Shi Ju unable to stand stably. Yi Qing Luo summoned Shi Ju back into the pet space and swiftly avoided the falling stones. Her peripheral vision swept past the crack behind her. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed past a sliver of disbelief and astonishment. That crack was surging with countless waves of jade-green rays, as though it was going to swallow everything in this hole. Oh no, the seal has been unlocked. Miao Yixiong stared at the sky full of jade-green rays, like waves, lingering around the entire hole. His legs felt weak as he laid paralyzed on the ground. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were pierced by the jade-green rays. What did Miao Yixiong say? The seal has been broken? In his mind, old man Tsang's lamenting voice rang out. So, the final layer of the seal requires a husband and wife who possess absolute true feelings as a sacrifice. A freak combination of factors actually undid the Miao tribe seal. In other words, Grandpa Boo and Grandma Boo both jumped into this so-called seal, and became sacrifices to break the seal. The Miao tribe had guarded the seal for 700 years. It was unlocked? What exactly is this? Yi Qing Luo had yet to finish her question. A majestic pressure completely enveloped her. The jade-green light devoured everything about her. All of his strength seemed to have been sucked out of him. His consciousness gradually faded away. His body weakly fell backwards. But, Yi Qing Luo didn't feel the pain from falling onto the ground. Her body was embraced into a greeting embrace. Yi Qing Luo's breathing paused as she opened her eyes hazily. In his mind, a peerless demonic face of peerless elegance appeared. The man smiled at her. She was like a fox, charming and alluring. Her pink lips moved slightly as she silently spat out two words, "Ah Xian." Was Ah Xian here? Once again, when she met with a predicament, he was like a deity, descending from the heavens. But what entered her nose was an extremely elegant plum fragrance. No, this wasn't Ah Xian's smell. This person wasn't Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo's breathing became hurried. She wanted to struggle. But her entire body had no energy at all. The more anxious she was, the further her consciousness drifted. Ding! A melodious sound was heard from the pendant on Yiqing Luo's neck. Following that, a ray of light flashed out from that pendant. Chapter 2489. Inside the underground cave. Just as Yiqing Luo was engulfed by the jade light, a stone wall in the underground cave was blasted apart by a powerful force. Following that, a tall figure sped over. That pair of ink-like deep eyes saw the young lady who was descending from mid-air. That frozen face revealed a sliver of panic. He speedily went forward and held the young lady's soft body firmly in his arms. He lowered his eyes and gazed deeply at the young lady in his arms. His cold eyes gradually surfaced a sliver of gentleness and deep affection. Yiqing Luo. His voice was low and lingering, as though he was calling out his most beloved person's name, so affectionate. The young lady's slender brows creased slightly. Following that, her pink lips opened and closed, as though she wanted to raise her hand to pull him. The young man's eyes were filled with joy as he raised his hand and was about to hold the young lady's hand tightly. But, after seeing the shape of the young lady's mouth, the smile on his face slowly faded away. He regained his usual indifference, as though he was covered with frost. Ah Xian. The person she was calling was Dmo Xian. The surrounding jade light was like a wild beast that was brandishing its claws and fangs, swallowing everything. But, when the jade light touched the red-robed young man, it avoided him like a snake or scorpion. The jade light swallowed everything in this underground cave. But it forcefully separated the young man. Yiqing Luo. The young man's voice was a little hoarse. He called out Yiqing Luo's name word by word. His voice was cold and emotionless. You are mine, the person in your heart can only be me. The young man muttered softly, his voice was stubborn. He fixed his gaze on the young lady in his arms. His icy cold eyes flashed a sliver of red glow. Suddenly, he bent his head and kissed Yiqing Luo's lips. Just at the moment when he bent over. Ding! A crisp sound was heard. In the silent underground cave, it was extremely clear. The young man had yet to touch Yiqing Luo's lips. His eyes were stung by the intense white light in front of him. He had no choice but to dodge backwards. He raised his other hand to block his eyes. Bam! A gust of wind from a palm landed on his chest. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels felt like the world was turning upside down, and he was in extreme pain. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his body was sent flying. The girl in his arms was also taken away by an invisible force. Yiqing Luo. The young man's cold eyes froze and he didn't even bother to wipe off the blood by the side of his mouth as he immediately flew up and charged towards Yiqing Luo. It was as if the person who had just been slapped and vomited blood was not him at all. In his eyes, there was only Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxin, you want to take advantage of my absence to molest my woman? Are you courting death? A mellow voice faintly sounded. When the youth heard this voice, his body froze, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. It was as if he couldn't believe it. How could that person appear here? Green light flickered. Gradually, a tall and straight figure appeared in front of him. His purple robe fluttered, and he stood tall and straight. On that peerless face, his thin lips were pursed into a thin line, and his face was filled with displeasure. This man. Just by standing in front of him, Zhu Wuxin felt a powerful pressure that was continuously exerting on him. Zhu Wuxin's cold eyes flickered slightly, as he slowly met the man's eyes, which could shake everything in the world. Overlord. He spat out the words coldly, as his vision shifted, as it focused on the unconscious young lady in his arms. Give her to me. The man's deep and handsome face surfaced a sliver of coldness. This overlord's woman naturally has this overlord's protection. She's mine. Zhu Wuxin didn't give in at all, she has always belonged to me. Dmo Xian's eyes turned slightly cold, as he lazily squinted his peach blossom eyes, as his lips curled in disdain. Following that, his finger hooked lightly, as he lifted Yi Qing Luo's lower jaw. Chapter 2490. A kiss. Not long after. Just purely using his warmth to warm her lips. Dmo Xian raised his eyes as he looked at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Yours? Zhu Wuxian's icy cold expression flashed past a sliver of emotion. In the depths of his deep cold eyes, numerous storms surged. What made him furious was not Dmo Xian's action. But, he clearly saw the young lady who was nestled in Dmo Xian's arms. Her brows were relaxed. Furthermore, at the instance when Dmo Xian kissed her, a faint smile surfaced on her face. And when Yi Qing Luo was in his arms, she was obviously rejecting him. Even her consciousness was swallowed. Dmo Xian was the only person on her mind. He was unresigned. And unwilling to let go. He had set his mind on Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo must belong to him. Qing Luo. Qing Luo. Chu Wuxian broke out from the huge hole earlier and a few voices were heard calling out. Following that, a few figures rushed in hurriedly. How is it? Is Qing Luo all right? Did we make it in time? The few people who had just rushed in. When they saw the situation in the hole clearly, they were all stunned on the spot with a dazed look. In front of them, the surging jade light had enveloped everything in the hole. The surroundings were all covered by the jade light. Standing in the middle of the hole, the two people who were completely isolated from the jade light were especially eye-catching. Two men, different types, but both were equally outstanding, both handsome like gods. One evildoer, indolent and noble. Just a simple gaze, a minute movement, it was filled with an invisible pressure. Everything around the plunderer. One was cold as ice, domineering and ruthless. It was just a simple gaze, a casual action, but it was enough to send chills down one's spine. This. What kind of situation was this? Overlord? Yan Xiaoyi's eyes widened and on seeing the man who was hugging Yi Qing Luo, she opened her mouth in shock. You're back. Dmo Xian raised his eyes slightly as he squinted at Yan Xiaoyi, not saying a word. How is Qing Luo? Is she alright? Why did she faint? Yan Xiaoyi didn't care if the overlord answered her question as she asked worriedly. I'm fine. Dmo Xian lowered his eyes, gently gazing at the young lady in his arms. You don't have to worry. It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine. Yan Xiaoyi heaved a sigh of relief and her gaze swept the surroundings. Where's that Miao tribe leader? Didn't he also come to this cave? Behind him, a petite figure quickly ran a few steps forward. And, where are Grandpa Boo and Grandma Boo? What happened to them? Tisk tsk, Zo-mo rubbed his chin and clicked his tongue. The power of this seal is quite strong. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been completely devoured by the power of this seal. Miao Yi's delicate body trembled. Impossible. Grandpa Boo and Grandma Boo. How could they? He escaped. A low and cold voice rang out indifferently. Everyone's gaze quickly followed the source of the sound. Gue Wu, who had an indifferent expression on his face, calmly said, when it sensed the powerful energy of the seal, a surge of energy escaped from the cave. Is it the Miao Patriarch, or Grandpa Boo and Grandma Boo? Miao Yi's face was pale, her voice trembling. Gue Wu didn't answer her question. Instead he raised a pair of indifferent, emotionless eyes, looking at Dmo Xian without blinking. Chapter 2491. These words caused everyone's hearts to tremble. All of their gazes converged onto Dmo Xian in unison. Not the Overlord? Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that she swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then, who is he? He's still carrying our Qing Luo. Xiao Jin held onto Yan Xiaoyi's shoulders, his face also full of shock. It's undoubtedly Lord Dizun. Even if someone could disguise as Lord Dizun, but, this temperament, besides Lord Dizun, who else could it be? Zhu Wu Xian fixed his eyes on Dmo Xian. A pair of cold eyes without any warmth. You are not him. His words were cold and emotionless. However, Zhu Wuxin's tightly pursed thin lips seemed to have turned into thin ice, betraying his anger at this moment. The glint in Dmo Xian's eyes seemed to be filled with a faint trace of ridicule. He narrowed his peach blossom eyes and laughed in a low voice. I am not him, so you think you have the right to touch Lil Luo'er? You are not him, and she is not yours, Zhu Wu Xian spat out coldly. His eyes were ice cold. Dmo Xian wasn't shaken by his aura but instead laughed lightly. So, you also admit that Lil Luo'er is this Lord's woman? Zhu Wu Xian's expression turned stiff as he stared coldly at Dmo Xian. He knitted his brows tightly, already having doubts in his heart. This person could not possibly not be Dmo Xian. No one in the world could imitate such a temperament. Old man Gue Wu, if you don't make your words clear, this lord will not be able to explain. Dmo Xian raised his brows as he looked at Gue Wu, who had an indifferent expression. Master Gue Wu, what's going on? Is he really the venerable overlord? Lord Gue Wu, don't leave us hanging. You're making us nervous. Xiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi anxiously looked towards Gue Wu. Gue Wu indifferently raised his eyes, before calmly saying, he doesn't count. What do you mean by not considered? Yan Xiaoyi was about to die from anxiety due to Gue Wu. He's only a clone of Dizun, and not the real Dizun. Gue Wu finally said the second half of the sentence. However, the few of them were somewhat dumbfounded. What was a doppelganger? What do you mean it's not my main body? The Overlord should have extracted a strand of his consciousness and placed it in an object on Yiqing Luo's body. At specific times, this consciousness will turn into the Overlord's clone and replace the Overlord to protect Yiqing Luo. Gue Wu explained in a rare patient manner. His gaze was like a torch as he stared straight at Dmo Xian, but extracting one's consciousness and transforming it into a doppelganger, not only will it consume more than half of one's profound energy, if the doppelganger suffers any damage, the main body will also suffer the same injury. Then, he is. Hearing Gue Wu's words, Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that she was unable to regain her senses. He can be called a venerable sovereign, but he's just a clone of a venerable sovereign. Gue Wu continued Yan Xiaoyi's words, for the Overlord to be able to do so much for student Yiqing Luo, I can tell that he really dotes on student Yiqing Luo. This was more than just being doted on. He was practically using his life to pamper her. The place the Overlord was going to this time was the upper realm. The upper realm that was filled with experts. The Overlord had even consumed more than half of his Xian energy. If the Overlord was in the upper realm, and accidentally discovered that he had consumed more than half of his Xian energy, wouldn't he take the opportunity to make a move on the Overlord? It was impossible for the Overlord not to have thought of these problems. But in order to ensure Qing Luo's safety, he resolutely chose to take the risk himself. They were so touched that they were about to cry. After listening to Gue Wu's explanation, everyone's feelings were different. Chapter 2492. Zhu Wu Xian stared at Dmo Xian's face without blinking. His eyes flickered with a strange glint. Just as he was about to bend his head to kiss Yiqing Luo, the pendant on Yiqing Luo's neck surged with a terrifying energy. Dmo Xian's consciousness. It was hidden on the pendant that Yiqing Luo wore. He actually used this kind of method to stay by Yiqing Luo's side. His hands, which were hanging by the side of his body, clenched tightly into fists. Everyone was moved and envied the couple in front of him. It stung his eyes. That young lady was obviously in his arms. She was clearly his girl. On what basis did Dmo Xian beat him to it? He didn't like Dmo Xian. Didn't like to see Dmo Xian hugging Yiqing Luo. Didn't like to see Yiqing Luo in Dmo Xian's arms, that relaxed look. Didn't like those people who treated Dmo Xian as Yiqing Luo's lover, denying his identity. Dmo Xian acutely sensed the intense resentment emitting from Zhu Wuxian. He tightened his grip on the person in his arms as he squinted his long peach blossom eyes. Zhu Wuxian, you know very well that the person Lil Luo chose is me. If you really love Lil Luo then you should respect Lil Luo's choice. He paused as his lips curled into a smile. Isn't it said that if you really love someone, it is to see her happiness? Lil Luo and me together is happiness. That smile was filled with provocation. Zhu Wuxian's pupils constricted as his deep and cold eyes shot out an icy chill directly towards Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian's brows rose as the smile on his lips grew wider. If you insist on getting Lil Luo disregarding her wishes, then do you think you're fit to use the word love to express your feelings towards Lil Luo I don't love her. An icy cold word was spat out from Zhu Wuxian's mouth. The person she chose is me. Dmo Xian sneered, are you lying to yourself? She said that she will marry me, then she must keep to the promise between us. She promised me that she is mine, Zhu Wuxian said stubbornly. Every word he said was filled with a sense of danger. Dmo Xian frowned slightly when he heard that. He also knew that for someone as stubborn as Zhu Wuxian, nothing he said would be able to change his deep-rooted beliefs. He could not be bothered to waste his breath on Zhu Wuxian. Lil Luo also did not have time to waste here. He lowered his eyes and looked tenderly at the disguised face of the person in his arms. He didn't lift his eyelids, but the person he was talking to was obviously Zhu Wuxian. Lil Luo is this Lord's woman, no matter if it's this lifetime, or the next lifetime. Forever and ever, she will always be my, Dmo Xian's woman. You will never have this chance. I won't let go. Zhu Wuxian's eyes were gloomy and cold as his deep eyes gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo. Soon after, he turned around and walked towards the huge hole that he came from without looking back. In an instant, Zhu Wuxian's aura disappeared from the cave. Yan Xiaoyi and the others were still in a daze towards this baffling fight for Yiqing Luo battle, which ended in such a baffling manner. Yan Xiaoyi blinked as she recalled Zhu Wuxian's unemotional denial earlier. He doesn't love Qing Luo. That look of his. Doesn't it look like he doesn't love Qing Luo? Ever since he found out that Yiqing Luo trespassed into the Miao tribe alone. Until he found out that Yiqing Luo had fallen into the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds, the dangerous sealed grounds. Chapter 2493. Zhu Wuxian, that madman, he simply released his perception like a madman and followed Miao clan leader, using brute force along the way to break through 1,000 meters deep hole, rushing over here to save Qing Luo? He actually said he doesn't love Qing Luo? Who is he trying to bluff? Recalling Zhu Wuxian's craziness earlier, Yan Xiaoyi was still feeling a lingering fear. Zhu Wuxian could be said to be at the stage where he didn't even care about his life. This lord will thank him on behalf of Lil Luo. Dmo Xian spoke calmly as he raised his eyes in warning. Yan Xiaoyi felt a chill down her spine as she sniggered a few times and replied in an extremely quick-witted manner, I know, I know. Overlord, I will absolutely not tell Qing Luo about this matter. Qing Luo doesn't owe that madman Zhu Wuxian any favor. Dmo Xian nodded his head in satisfaction. Overlord, the split body cannot exist for too long. It will affect the original body greatly, especially in this place. You'd better return to your original body first. The silent ghost martial artist opened his mouth once again. When Kitty Lee heard that, she immediately walked towards Dmo Xian as she opened her arms wide. Overlord brother-in-law, hand sister over to Kitty Lee, quickly return to your original body. If sister knows that you hurt your body because of her, she will be upset. However, Dmo Xian hugged Yi Qing Luo and avoided her. No worries. He spoke in a low and hoarse voice as he gazed at the person in his arms as his brows were filled with longing. This lord misses her. Sister misses you too. Kitty Lee blinked her spirited black eyes as she spoke in a serious tone, so Overlord brother-in-law, quickly come back, don't let sister keep missing you. The arm which was hugging the young lady tightened once again. Kitty Lee didn't notice Dmo Xian's emotional changes. She only told Overlord brother-in-law everything that she knew in her heart. She still wanted to say something. But her petite body was suddenly pulled by a strong force as she fell backwards. Kitty Lee cried out in shock as she wanted to struggle. But her body fell into a boiling hot embrace. A seductive voice laughed softly beside her ear, "Little wild cat, don't bother about Overlord's matters. This lord misses you too. Zo mo, you frivolous man." Kitty Lee's cheeks flushed red the moment she smelled the familiar bamboo fragrance. Zo mo narrowed his red phoenix eyes and stared at the shy kitten in his arms. His smile became more and more playful. "Tsk, you look like a red apple. It seems that the little wild cat also misses me very much." Who missed you?" Kitty Lee struggled with a red face and scratched him with her claws. However, her hands were locked in Zo Mo's embrace. He smiled mischievously. Your face is filled with the words miss me, miss me, miss me." Kitty didn't. Kitty Lee's cheeks turned even redder. She stopped scratching Zo Mo and raised her hands to cover her face. This indirectly proved how much she missed Zo Mo. "Enough, you too." Yan Xiaoyi looked at the dog food which was stuffed into her mouth unknowingly. "Qing Luo is still unconscious, the both of you please be more serious." Kitty Lee used her hand to knock the man behind her. "Did you hear that? I asked you to be more serious." Zo Mo smiled as he lowered his head and kissed her face. "All right, this lord is serious." "Serious your big head." Kitty Lee's face turned even redder. Chapter 2494. Dmo Xian seemed as though he hadn't heard Yan Xiaoyi's words. His gaze was fixated on the person in his arms. A pair of watery peach blossom eyes. Lingering, with infinite tenderness. Yan Xiaoyi's stretched out hand, quietly retracted back under this atmosphere. Xiao Jin sighed softly as he held Yan Xiaoyi's shoulder and comforted her softly. "Forget it, Overlord has been separated from Qing Luo for such a long time, and earlier he was agitated by Zhu Wuxian, so naturally he can't bear to leave Qing Luo. But his original body." Yan Xiaoyi looked at Dmo Xian worriedly. "Overlord has his own sense of propriety." Xiao Jin patted Yan Xiaoyi's shoulder. "From what I see, the moment he saw student Yi Qing Luo, he had already lost his sense of propriety." Gue Wu's indifferent voice interrupted Xiao Jin's consolation. His gaze looked straight at Dmo Xian. "Overlord, you should be very clear that this is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds." Gue Wu's voice was very calm, but the meaning in his words was hair-raising. "The seal's power is getting stronger and stronger. Going against the seal's power will only exhaust a large amount of your doppelganger's power, and your original body will also suffer the same amount of damage. Everyone's gazes instantly congealed on Dmo Xian. Overlord, you and Qing Luo still have a lot of time. Go back first. We will definitely take good care of Qing Luo and will absolutely not let any other man get close to her. When Yan Xiaoyi heard that, she instantly panicked. When Qing Luo regained consciousness, to know that Dmo Xian not only left his doppelganger by her side, he even exhausted his power to go against the Miao tribe's seal's power. Wouldn't his heart ache to death? Gui Wu. Dmo Xian didn't reply Yan Xiaoyi but shifted his gaze onto Gui Wu as he spoke in a calm tone, I'll have to trouble you to bring them away from here. Gui Wu frowned slightly, you're not intending to leave. Dmo Xian looked at the person in his arms and nodded indifferently. Gui Wu didn't persuade him but really followed Dmo Xian's intention as he turned around and walked towards the hole which Zhu Wu Xian used his brute force to blast open. Zhou Mo hooked Kitty Li's slender waist, little wildcat, let's go. Kitty Li slapped his hand hard, didn't you hear what Master Gui Wu said? If Di Zun's brother-in-law didn't leave this place, it would consume his strength. How could Kitty leave my sister and Di Zun and brother-in-law behind? Silly Kitty, with Di Zun here, your sister will be fine. Zhou Mo pinched Kitty Li's pretty face. No. Kitty Li's attitude was firm. She would never leave when her sister was in danger. I won't leave either. Yan Xiaoyi pursed her lips. Gui Wu stood at the entrance of the cave and said impatiently, it's fine if you don't want to leave. Di Zun wants to die, but I don't. I don't have that much energy, and I don't need to waste my own strength. From the moment these people entered the underground cave, it was the barrier set up by the ghost marshal that was able to block the devouring power of the surrounding seal. Kitty Li and Yan Xiaoyi spoke at the same time. Dmo Xian interrupted the both of them, this is little Luo's opportunity. The Bu family village's two elders used their own lives to open up this opportunity for little Luo. As for the rest, little Luo needs to complete it himself. Opportunity? Yan Xiaoyi and the others were stunned. Leave this place with Gui Wu, I will take care of little Luo's safety. Saying that, Dmo Xian carried Yiqing Luo as he turned around and walked directly towards the crack which was surging with jade green light. Chapter 2495. Yiqing Luo's consciousness was still in a daze, unable to gather. She felt that her entire body was floating, as though she was a feather. Lil Luo, Beside her ear was that familiar calling voice. That voice was filled with lingering love. It made her heart feel sweet for no reason. She wanted to open her mouth to respond to that person's call. But her lips seemed to be stuck tightly together. She had no way to open her mouth. Lil Luo, Lil Luo, Lil Luo, The calling voice was still going on. Sometimes it was far away, sometimes it was close at hand. However, the emotions contained in each voice were stronger than the last. Who was it? Who was calling her? She wanted to open her eyes. She wanted to open her mouth to call the person who was calling her. But her entire body was unable to move. She could only allow her body to float up and down, float, float, float. That calling voice became softer and softer. Gradually, she couldn't hear the voice anymore. Couldn't hear it. She couldn't hear it anymore. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's heart twitched fiercely. A piercing pain made Yiqing Luo give a dull moan. The next moment, she felt that her feather-like body was being tugged by something fiercely. Her body finally had a sense of reality. Finally had a sense of weight. Following that, a warm touch warmed her pink lips which were stuck together, unable to open no matter what. The elegant sandalwood fragrance filled her nostrils. First was a simple touch. Following that, it was a series of violent attacks. The scorching aura started to rise. Yiqing Luo's feather-like body, at the same time as the temperature of her body rose, gradually had a real sense of reality. She was no longer like a feather, drifting with the wind. Her consciousness was no longer in a trance, without any feeling. The sandalwood fragrance's smell became thicker and thicker. Her entire being was almost corroded by this sandalwood fragrance. Her entire body was restless, and the scorching feeling made her subconsciously react accordingly. Lil Luo, This time, the voice entered her ears extremely clearly. Right beside her ears, as though it was whispering the world's only treasure, extremely pampering. Yiqing Luo's heart melted. Hence. Under this fierce attack, Yiqing Luo gradually regained her senses. Ah! Xian, a hoarse voice spilled out from Yiqing Luo's pink lips with difficulty. She could finally control her body. Overjoyed, she was just about to call out the man's name. Unbeknownst to her, the man's large palm had already reached for her belt. He gently pulled. His robe loosened. Yiqing Luo suddenly shuddered, and her half-dazed mind suddenly cleared up at this moment. The next moment, she opened her eyes. What entered her eyes was a pair of bottomless, inky eyes. In his inky black eyes, sparks of fire were burning. Some kind of emotion was very obvious. Oh! Before she could open her mouth, her lips were ruthlessly sealed again. The man's familiar face was deeply reflected in her eyes. Her heart was pounding. Her hands instinctively clenched his collar. Ah Xian, it really was Ah Xian. She wasn't dreaming, Ah Xian, he really came back. The thick longing instantly eroded Yiqing Luo's heart. The corner of her eyes gradually became wet. Perhaps it was because of the longing for Dmo Xian. Or perhaps it was because of Dmo Xian's fierce kiss. Oh! Suddenly, Yiqing Luo, who was indulged in the longing for Dmo Xian, suddenly widened her eyes, her cheeks flushed red. She raised her hand and grabbed a certain disobedient hand. She wanted to stop it. But the man kissed her even more fiercely. Chapter 2496. But Dmo Xian's hand became more honest. Little Luo, after a long time, the man slowly let her go. He murmured Yiqing Luo's name as he rested his head on her neck. Sang Xian's voice was low and hoarse as it revealed infinite affection. I miss you so much. The man didn't conceal his feelings at all, which made Yiqing Luo unable to raise her temper. She blamed him for kissing her till she couldn't breathe when she just woke up. She snorted angrily, showing her delicate side. She slowly raised her weak hands and wrapped them around his sturdy waist. I missed you too. The man's arms around her body tightened. His face, rubbed against her neck, his warm breath, slowly awakened Yiqing Luo's sensitivity. They embraced for a moment. In Dmo Xian's arms, Yiqing Luo felt especially at ease. His body also gradually relaxed. Have you settled everything in the upper realm? You won't leave, right? She nestled in his embrace, her voice soft and coquettish. You stinky heartless man. You abandoned me for half a month. We're separated by a great plain. Even if I missed you, I couldn't contact you. The hard body of the man who was carrying her suddenly stiffened. Yiqing Luo acutely felt it. She bit her lower lip and placed her hands on his chest. He pushed it slightly. The man's head left her shoulder. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and stared at him without blinking. You still want to leave? Dmo Xian's fingertips twined around a strand of her hair. He lowered his head and kissed her hair. I'm sorry. It was a tacit agreement. He would leave again. He would be lying if he said he wasn't sad. But looking at the fatigue in Dmo Xian's brows, that face filled with longing, his eyes filled with tenderness. No matter how unhappy Yi Qing Luo was. Neither of them could bring themselves to be angry. She missed Dmo Xian. How would Dmo Xian not miss her? She believed that if it was possible, Dmo Xian would absolutely want to stick together with her at any moment, to become a conjoined twins. But, he couldn't. He was not only the venerable sovereign of the Nirvana realm. There was also another layer, an even more noble identity. A long time ago, she had often heard people talking about it: the greater one's ability, the greater the responsibility. Although to Dmo Xian, what happened to others had nothing to do with him. However, with his strength and status, he would not allow himself to be willful. Even if it had nothing to do with him. I have to get involved too. Look at the tiredness in his eyes. Look at the dark circles under his eyes. It was clearly for his responsibility, so that he could meet her as soon as possible. That was why he was so desperate. How could she bear to blame Dmo Xian? Her heart ached for Dmo Xian. But, in Dmo Xian's eyes, that was Lil Luo's silence was definitely because she was blaming him. Lil Luo, don't stay silent, hit me if you're unhappy. I'll let you hit me, don't ignore me. Dmo Xian grabbed Yi Qing Luo's little hand and swung it towards his face. Dmo Xian, who had never coaxed a woman before. The Dmo Xian who could flirt with Yi Qing Luo in minutes. At this moment, he was like a child who had done something wrong, using such a childish method to coax Yi Qing Luo. She was really angry at the bottom of her heart. At this moment, they would probably be so amused that they would vanish into thin air. All right. Stop fooling around. Yi Qing Luo forcefully retracted her hand. How could she bear to hit him, who asked me to choose such an outstanding man? What else can I do? Even if he's kneeling, I'll still pamper him. Yi Qing Luo's words made Dmo Xian stunned. Why did these words sound so strange? But her heart was filled with sweetness. Chapter 2497. Stop. Stop. Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and covered the man's lips. The scorching lips were imprinted on her palm. The scorching sensation made her feel as though she had touched a burning flame. Her cheeks were once again dyed crimson red. Stop fooling around, where are we now? Yi Qing Luo glared at him coquettishly, her brows were filled with a young lady's charm. Only in front of Dmo Xian. And only Dmo Xian alone could see this Yi Qing Luo. Ah Xian, do you know where we are? While Yi Qing Luo was talking to Dmo Xian, she sized up the surroundings. As far as the eye could see, it was an empty piece of jade light. Apart from the jade green light, there was nothing else. Just as Yi Qing Luo pulled Dmo Xian and looked around. Not sure if it was her misconception. Somehow, Dmo Xian's body stiffened slightly for a moment. She was stunned as she turned back to look at Dmo Xian in puzzlement. What she met was a pair of peach blossom eyes filled with warmth. His thin lips curved into an extremely shallow arc and his gaze was deep and serene, as if he wanted to imprint her deeply into his mind. Yi Qing Luo's heart had an inexplicable fluster. She instinctively grabbed Dmo Xian's collar tightly. Slender fingers hooked onto his. Ah Xian, you. Are you hiding something from me? She understood her man too well. Dmo Xian must have something to hide from her. Moreover, this matter was related to her and this piece of jade light world. Dmo Xian didn't answer. Under the light, the man's deep and handsome face revealed a hazy and dreamy brilliance. She couldn't see clearly the expression on his face. The only thing she could see was the deep affection and pampering in his eyes. Ah Xian. Not waiting for a reply, Yi Qing Luo's heart instantly panicked. The hand that held Dmo Xian tightened even more. After a long time, in the jade light, the man's magnetic voice rang beside her ear, "Nothing." He spat out 2 words. Lowering his head, his warm breath slowly seeped into her earlobe. The young lady's petite body uncontrollably trembled slightly. Her grip on his collar loosened as well. "This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds." Dmo Xian gently held her hand as he explained in a gentle voice. His heart was beating normally. His voice was also very normal. It was as if that moment of shock and speechlessness was just an illusion. Yiqing Luo's arms wrapped tightly around his waist. She inhaled the sandalwood fragrance from his body. Only then did he slowly calm himself down. The 2 elders of the Bu family used their own lives to open the seal of the Miao tribe's forbidden land for you. Dmo Xian felt the breathing of the young lady in his arms, gradually becoming smoother, and between his brows, a trace of a relieved smile flashed past. His large palm gently patted the girl's delicate back. His eyes were quiet and unblinking, almost greedily looking at everything about her. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened at the mention of the Bu family's 2 elders. Her little hands tightened as she clasped onto Dmo Xian's wrist and raised her head from his embrace. "This is the inside of the seal?" She remembered when the emerald light had covered the sky and covered the earth. Miao Yi Xiong shouted that the seal was unlocked. Following that, her consciousness was swallowed by the power of the seal. In the end, she seemed to have sensed Dmo Xian's arrival. Dmo Xian had rushed over in time to save her? And even brought her to the inside of the seal? You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.